Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, March 15th, 2022. I am so happy and grateful to say I have a much better internet connection set up now so that this will now be so much easier, more fun, happy, and gratifying to be able to do this presentation and send things out. Send out connective broadcasts. What a good analogy of like having clear telepathy and being able to really connect, and how much that gives me a different emotional self state to be able to not feel frustrated or challenged. So moving forward with what is today's presentation, it's a continuation of last week. Even though I've been doing alternating level 1 and level 2 stuff, last week I knew that it was a big topic and I had those issues of being able to start on time and get all the information that I wanted in there. So I broke last week's presentation up into 2 parts, and this is part 2. So this is, I'm just moving my notes. And if you guys see me looking down, it's because I have my notes over here, because I take extensive lecture notes so that I can keep on track. Hi, Art, so good to see you. Thank you for being here. And I also have been sharing those lecture notes. So if you're catching this on YouTube, you can find the notes on my Patreon, on my Facebook page, and on the email list for the students of this class, because I think it really helps in terms of the way that people learn. And in order to present these ideas to humanity, I had to learn how people learn. For me, all of this is intuitive knowledge or direct insight knowledge that is boom, all at once. And so I have had to learn when I present it to people, absorb the information the best. Art is confirming for me that yes, it helps a lot. So what I do is I go through all of my lessons that I've recorded years ago. I write notes. I use those notes for my lecture here, and I share those lecture notes so that you can read, because we use a certain part of our brain when we read through our eyes and perception. We use a different part of our brain when we learn auditorily through our ears. And then very, very soon, what we're going to start doing is learning by the tactile sensation of actually drawing. So I'm just working on getting that order for those templates going for the students who wanted to have the custom made templates in the sizes and the calibrations that I use regularly in my artwork. And then I'll start teaching you all about how, let's see if I go to a share screen just very briefly, because this is actually not part of what I have prepared for today, but very briefly, let me find a better one. Here we go. Hold on a second. This painting that I'm wiggling over right now that has the dark black background, you can see how, like, where I have my cursor over here, that is the edge of yellow that is kind of resting upon the lower inner edge or inner lip of orange. Just keep that in mind for today. This interconnection between yellow, the level of the human operating system, quote unquote, that I call it that as an analogy, not a literalism, and your emotional reality, which is represented by this larger orange chakra. Interpenetration and balancing and resting upon, meaning that your emotional state affects your thoughts and your thoughts affect your emotional state. That is the salient information for right now. And I will guide everyone through actual drawing lessons of how to build these chakras up so that you can actually get the tactile sense of what rests upon what in your body, in your own, here I'll go back to in your own beingness, and also the understanding, although I represent a lot of this as a linear journey, like red first, then orange, then yellow, all of these things stacked up like almost in a line, that all of this is an analogy or a poetic, allegorical representation of the truth state, which is that everything is experienced at once. So again, in experiencing everything as one holistic whole, have learned that it's necessary for me in presenting it to others with no condescension, break it up into manageable parts and present it in a linear fashion. And your journey is not a linear journey. So the journey of ascension, it's not like, well, first we're going to perfect this level, then we'll move on to this level, then we'll move on to this level. You're really clearing, balancing, and energizing or claiming the whole entirety of your self state all at once. So all of these, I'm playing it like a chord, like on my piano, playing all this music all at once. All of these notes of your being are all activated and energized at once. And when you are connecting 2 of them together, they connect and interpenetrate, and you connect this one up here. So that would be like your insight up here, connects with your intellect here, connects with your emotions here. All of these levels of being are energized or informed or changed, shifted, and improved or given greater levels of organizational presence at the same time. So that being said, this is the level 2 presentation, lesson 6, part 2. All right. So, and let me go to my notes. So I shared my part 1 notes last week, and now I'm starting on part 2. This is the continuation of the lesson about the flying rainbow lasagna as a bridge or a doorway to be able to bring in new ideas, information, and energy, and a new genetic dance that I was describing to you last week. And this part is called the flying rainbow lasagna and new vibrations. So also I would like to say, before I even get into my notes, I'm talking. And I often joke about the inexpressibility of these things, the frustration of using words. I don't want to ever be demeaning or condescending in that way. Words are a tool. Phonetic sound symbolic language packages are an effective tool of what we're using right now in terms of sharing information. So when I talk about the human OS or operating system, like on my computer right now, I have Mac, so I use, OS, whatever, Catalina or something like that. Or if you're on a PC, you run something like OS Windows. These operating systems, there's no good, bad, right, or wrong. They are interface tools, all right? My criticism from when I recorded these lessons and my ongoing criticism is that I call the operating system at the level of yellow, where humans are operating from in terms of the daily waking consciousness and the ego intellectual state of, being consciously controlling your mind, as being a hacked system. And that is my great criticism. So there's nothing wrong with using an operating system. There's nothing wrong with having a mind. Just like I don't think you have to kill your ego. I'm like imaginary stabbing the ego. Don't kill your ego. The ego is a valuable and valued interface, a tool for how you take the unformed beingness of you and your thoughts and feelings and everything that is oceanic or cosmic, who you are or were in that childlike state of innocence and pure grace when you first came here, in incarnation into the physicality structure, that is a beautiful state of being, and it remains. It's still a part of you. And then also there is the acculturalization level, which I'm critical of in the sense that I feel it has taught a lot of negative thought and behavior habits to humanity that, when I say negative, anti-survival, that you got taught and programmed for limitations and things that make you go into the membrane of death. And today's teaching is basically about the impetus for, the motivation for my creation of this flying rainbow lasagna, and how this helps to jump up and over the hacks or the limitations that have been intentionally placed in the human operating system. So we have to get to that too. I used to, in the presentation of level 1 stuff, always be talking about and leading up to lesson 18. Oh, lesson 18. I would allude to it all the time. And everyone would be like, what's wrong with lesson 18? Or like, like almost an intimidation factor. There's nothing wrong with lesson 18. For a long time, and I recorded this stuff in 2012, 2013, and then into 2014. It was stuff that if I talked about it or spoke about it openly with people, it might cause emotional imbalances. Like, whoa, like you're rocking my world and making me feel all these different things, because it was information that was not yet as widely spoken about, emotionally processed, and accepted. Things like this are now much more widely spoken about and accepted in our culture. So I have many fewer qualms in terms of just openly being out of the closet, out and about, in referencing these things. The idea that our planet has been invaded, the idea that your mind is not your own, the idea that what's speaking in your mind and your human operating system and your level of daily waking intellect, and even your ego in terms of your identity, what you identify as self, this is me, this is the meanness of me, all of those things as being not necessarily naturally arising, as being implanted from something or someone else, and that something or someone else might not have your best interests at heart. That's the stuff of lesson 18 that used to sometimes be considered world rocking or foundation rocking, or things that could make people question question themselves, question their realities, have concerns. And you can tell I'm a very responsible and ethical teacher in the things that I share, that I only want to share things at the level of development that is appropriate for the listener, and also in a way that helps you on your journey, because none of this is meant to be, as I am somewhat critical sometimes of some presentations that talk a lot about the things that are wrong. We can definitely recognize there are many, many piles of crapola, it's vernacular, in the world that we are like tiptoeing over, like I'm gently stepping over these piles of crapola as I walk through my day. And they're definitely there. I don't just want to highlight them, and I don't just want to be shaking my fist and saying like, it's not fair, it's not right, and there's crapola everywhere. What I really want to do is be able to give us bucket and a mop to be able to clean things up. And that is what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. So in that sense, let's say appropriate emotional responses, appropriate intellectual understanding, and effective behavioral tools for, okay, we can see that there are problems in the being, in the self state, in the intellect, in what we are experiencing. What do we do? My answer to you is dance like a flying rainbow lasagna. And that is a joyous, self-expression. And it is also a very effective tool. Like I use this analogy all the time. Little ant walking on two-dimensional surface. Oops, I reached something here that is a blockage. What do I do as a little ant? I can either jump up and over that blockage to get beyond it in terms of my linear journey moving along, or I can go nonlinear. And I can fold the fabric of time, space, and consciousness reality so that point A touches point B, and I don't have to move at all. And the blockage becomes a moot point or something that is no longer, hold on, I'll admit another person, no longer relevant or an obstruction on the journey. So lesson 18, and we'll get in the level 1 stuff of this semester through, and you can tell I'm moving at a not too fast pace through the semester intentionally, and it's different every semester. So we're going at the pace that we need to for right now, and it's not necessary to rush or cram everything in a sense of pressured learning. And I think that everybody learns and internalizes things much better in a sense of no pressure, and also creative energy flows and is more blissful in terms of no pressure. We will get to the lesson 18 stuff, but the basic synopsis is that at a certain point, what I describe as the antediluvian world, meaning pre-flood, and the flood is considered a mythological or semi-mythological event, catastrophe, that is looked at from this viewpoint of where we are now, submerged in time in mortal bodies. But there was a time, before this flood, or what is known as the fall, and it's also mythologized in this time place as the fall from Eden, Edenic culture, Edenic mind state that is in the Bible. No offense to anyone that is a true believer in the Bible. I look at the human Bible, the Torah or the Old Testament, as a mythological description or allegory for the journey of human consciousness. And human, as most humans are evidenced right now, is a limited, smaller, mortal form of who and what you were before that flood. So antediluvian means pre-flood. However, and time language goes inadequate at this point, which is why you sometimes I'm like, harumph on language because it is inadequate, but I will do my best to speak about it. Concurrent realities, concurrent times, that this hand is one level of reality, this hand is another level of reality, layers of the time tapestry. You as beingness inhabit self forms in both or all of these many multiple layers of reality, and that your experiences are happening concurrently, including the rebalancing of your chakras or your energy fields or your time fields that you inhabit. So if you are tilted at an angle like this and you're heading towards the membrane of death in this level of self-state, in this level of the time tapestry, and then let's say you start to learn new information. Learning new information is a course correction, and it starts to tilt you back up like this. That same course correction happens in your concurrent self-state, where you are living also in Atlantis. Atlantis being the mythological name for the antediluvian world or culture that we actually emanate from as consciousnesses If we used before, during, after type of language, linear time, we would say we were there before we are here, but we are here at the same time. We are in nested dream realities. So as you are there, at the same moment that you are there, you are here. And as we are there, we are actually in our immortal bodies of greatness. Like, think of yourself as gods and goddesses. Literally, it is a time before death ever came to this planet. It is a time of immortals. We all exist as these immortals, and then came into a dream state. And in this dream state, we inhabit these bodies, and these bodies can be frail and can be vulnerable. Need to eat food, not just live on pure sunlight. Need to, be cared for in certain ways, like live in a home, be warm. I have a heater behind me. Like in the antediluvian world, like we have, like, imagine having your own microclimate around you. Like, you're never hot, you're never cold. You have your own atmosphere around you. You can literally be any place. The context doesn't matter externally, because you support yourself and generate yourself completely of your own energy bubble, and you are sustained and guided completely on the pure energy of the sun, stars, Christ consciousness. Read here, not limited to the earthly conception or definition of Christ via the human religion known as Christianity in this time and place, with great respect and no offense to that beautiful religion and the people that are part of it. But Christ consciousness, something that is much larger than how it is defined here in this time place, as a food and a sustenance and a sun star within you that emanates and feeds and guides you and gives you everything that you need. That, yes, we do not require a heater and a propane or whatever type of gas is used to keep your house warm, is what I'm trying to say. But here we live in these frail or mortal bodies. It's like, I'm like, my skin is getting cold, my fingers are turning blue, I'm in danger of hypothermia, I need to build a campfire, I need to stay warm. And that is actually one of the, I am describing to you one of the primary ancestral traumas that we are healing in this moment with the flying rainbow lasagna. And I'm not even in my notes yet. But I want you to know, ancestral traumas not only are the reverberations of what has happened to you within this body state and this biology, like each one of us, whatever race or culture you emanate from, and whatever soul state or soul lineage you emanate from, each one of us has had, if you go back far enough, some form of like a genealogical trauma, what is the word, like a genocide or a war or a starvation. Like, these form ancestral traumas that then affect our genetic behavior and are passed down, and we are the distillation of all of these previous generations, and it comes to us, and it is up to us in this moment now to change our DNA dance, to heal those traumas, and to be able to move forward in a sense of perfect healing and divine connection, so that we don't recreate those traumas. What we are doing right now on a much, much larger time scale, human scale, is recognizing and healing the trauma of the fall from our antediluvian world, our concurrent examples and existences in Atlantis of what we experienced as mortals, where death never existed. Never had that sense of loss. You never had that sense of grief. You never had that sense of pain. All of these losses and pains were avoided because you literally look at the world. Where's a crystal? There's a good Rick and Morty episode that shows this, but I don't endorse that whole entire show, but that particular episode, a time crystal. They go to a magical planet, they get a time crystal, this guy tapes it to his forehead, and then everywhere he looks around, he's able to tell, what are the repercussions of my actions and choices? Like, if I choose to do this, then I go down this time road. If I choose to do this, I go down this time road. And he's using this as like a complex calculative, predictive supercomputer, which is actually part of what Christ consciousness is and your connection to higher divine reality. It is a guide that guides you in every moment based upon your choices and your thoughts and what you align with. That is how in the antediluvian world we are able to be immortal, untrammeled, eternal. There are always those gutter balls, the peripheral realities, at this side or at this side of the time vortex that are not the center of the vortex, but we are continually re-shifting ourselves towards that center of the vortex and staying in alignment with God, the source, the destination, the infinity point, singularity, the infinite overlapping everythingness of allness. That is who you are and who you came from. Always staying in alignment with that because we are guided. And the big thing that happened in terms of human destruction, like taking your construct and unconstructing you in not a good way, was disturbing this, disturbing your ability to see time, make good choices based upon total perception, and be connected to God, the guide, higher self, the guide, knowingness, the guide. No offense to anyone, like at this point in this journey, up until this point in the mortal world, you've been flying blind. It's been very, very difficult. Let me turn on my piano. Is my piano on? My piano's not on. Let me turn it on. But I'm going to make weird music because I have my stuff is turned on the other system. Hold on a second. Every single wrong note on the piano. When you don't have this activated, like, where should I go? Should I go here? I don't know. Maybe. Oh, yeah, that sounds interesting. Should I play this note? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe this note. No, maybe that's not the right one. We're getting closer. Maybe that's it. Let me move my notes. Wait. That's the note I'm looking for. But I had to do all of these, tries, all of these attempts that were not quite right in order to get it right. And every single one of those is a wrong note in reality. I'll turn this off so it doesn't make weird noises. Wrong note in reality. No offense to anyone who's playing a wrong note. You understand how you are loved and accepted in compassion by the source, by God, by your higher self. Like, you are really trying to do the best you can with some missing or damaged equipment. That is the genetic degradation that happened to humanity. That is the fall. That is stuff, like, you understand when I'm telling you this, it is possible for your shoulders to go down, for your posture to go down, for you to say, Aurora, I'm angry, I'm disappointed, I'm depressed, I'm sad, that sucks. And you can tell everything about my body posture is like, oh, going down. And that's not my intention. That's why I've always been very careful and cautious in the way that I present this information, because I want to be able to offer it to you in an empowerment state without any sugarcoating, recognizing the validity of your struggles and giving you the power and the belief in yourself for uplift, for reconnection with crystalline Christ consciousness, your own innate divine connection, your own superpowers, your capacity to see and perceive time directly. I'm getting somewhere with all of this. To know and understand that what I hold up in this sculptural form, this representation here, is a literalism. It's a literal truth of what is inside of you or surrounding and interpenetrating you, just like the picture I have on my wall there. This is not a poetic allegory. Like the things that happen on the purely anthropomorphic or human level, stories, myths, the Bible, those are poetic allegories that take something that's truthful and use like or as to make a similarity. This is an abstract truth. It is literally what you are shaped like. It's like the math equation of you. This literally resides inside of you. And as you begin to reawaken and reconnect with your Christ consciousness and your ability to see and perceive time, you see and perceive the truthfulness of that and are then able to be guided. Guide yourself, because this is higher self connection. Remember your own Christhood. I'm very big on that, and I'm never, again, contravening or demeaning the great master teacher who was here 2,000 years ago, who is avatar, meaning avatar, one who has come across waters, a representative of Christ. We are all returning to that crystalline Christ consciousness. You contain within you that beautiful capacity, and this is the Christ awakening in our world, on our planet, in this realm, whatever lexicon word you want to use for it. That's the return of Christ consciousness. And so I'm big on not a literal return of an anthropomorphic man, like a bearded man who will do things in that sense, a return of yourself to yourself, a raising up of your self state out of the challenging situation of mortality and death that one has been plunged into. Because again, when you have this capacity to see and be connected to the divine, and also I'm pointing down here to my belly, Your willpower at the level of orange. So I predicated all of this today by saying we're going to talk about the level of yellow, your hacked human operating system, and how it connects to your level of orange, your emotional reality, which is also, these are places where your willpower emanates from. And your insight, inner guidance is absolutely connected to your willpower, that you're supposed to be able to see where you're going and then have your hands on the steering wheel of your life. Wait, this is an actual wheel. You got it, guys? Like, I'm holding the steering wheel of my life, guiding it, or like flying your starship to be able to go where you want to go in time. And the basic upshoot of all of that is that, of course, you can see, and if you have your hands on the steering wheel of your car, of your existence, you are able to drive on positive pathways that lead and guide you towards eternal existence and continued self-development, growth, and selfhood, continual unfolding eternal selfhood and self-knowing and self-exploration, as opposed to driving off a cliff or doing a gutter ball or hitting the membrane of death. Wah, wah, game over, try again. That's what this is all about. So all of that being said, let me drink. I joked about this before I started the recording. Drinking my electrolyte water. I'm not drinking wine because it's a marathon. I'm like, oh my goodness, like we're running the marathon. Wait, I need some electrolytes. Let me keep going. Someone just woke up over here. Look who's coming. Look who's coming, having a little break before I get going on my notes. Yeah, Cheeky always makes an appearance on the beautiful experiences here. Go girl. And lightheartedness is good when we talk about heavy stuff. Cheeky can always be comic relief for us. Okay. Yes, because so I'm Aurora, coming from my Aurora collective, which is actually an outside of dimensional, like you could say higher dimensional self state. That would be semi-accurate. Again, words are challenging. I really emanate from a collective of consciousness. Maybe we would call it n-dimensional, or outside of time and dimensionality, in seeing and perceiving all time as now and all dimensionality as now and all possible unfoldments of dimensionality as now. That is where I emanate from. And again, just as we exist concurrently in Atlantis, meaning all of you guys are in Atlantis and all of you guys are here too. I am in my Aurora collective, a self-state outside of time, space, and dimensionality. And I am also here in embodiment concurrently at the same time. And I am vibrating between these two places. Last week in part one of this presentation, I explained and described how I do that, what my motivations were for doing that, and the interdimensional ethics involved. What motivated me to do that? Why not just be outside of the embodiment of time? Why not just be out there, like do it facetiously, sitting on a cloud, like doing the backstroke, everything is great, I'm totally fantastic. Why am I down here living on earth, buying toilet paper, which is a silly song, I'm getting a little silly, because it can be challenging. Why am I here in this mortal state with a heater to keep me warm, eating food, drinking electrolyte water? Why am I doing all these things? And I assure you, I am not here on a pleasure cruise or a sightseeing mission. I'm here on a very focused mission in terms of embodying this flying rainbow lasagna and making available to the embodied, embedded people here in this realm, in this world, new levels of energy. That is why this presentation is called The Flying Rainbow Lasagna and New Vibrations. This was a closed system, like imagine a terrarium, you know, one of those glass boxes or little greenhouses where everything is closed up. Once you put in like the soil, the plants, and the water, you close it up, you seal it up, and that's it. Like you put a cork in the top and that's it. Nothing enters into that system or comes out of that system. And the idea is that it is self-regenerative and that it's constantly, you know, recycling its oxygen and carbon dioxide and water in the water cycle. That's great if it's a perfect, pristine system. What if there's friction? What if there's entropy, which is in science language, the loss of energy? What if there's some bleed off or siphoning off of energy? What if you lose momentum? That is the problem of the enclosure of this self-state system that humanity has found itself in up until this point. Limitations of being able to get new ideas, new information, new ways of changing the steering wheel of your existence. So it has been very challenging to navigate and challenging to get new GPS data. Let's call it like that. Let's go way, way back to like 10 years ago, before the cell phone network was quite as extensive. And what you needed to do was download a map. Like right now, everything is in real time. You want to know how to get someplace. Like you just put on whatever, the Google Maps, the Apple Maps, and it is constantly updated to the point where it can even tell you, Highway 5 has, a blockage right now. You will be slowed down by 20 minutes. Real time updates. That's pretty good. But it used to be, let's say 10 years ago or even 15 years ago, when it was like, no, you have to download a map. And then what you have is just that map that is downloaded and you don't have real-time updates. So of course I'm using, hello, Lucy, good, welcome, good to see you here. Thank you for the hugs. Yeah, I'm using all of these analogies in our world of technology, and I'm always cautious to clarify that I'm not about, saying that we're technological or requiring us to be technological. I use these as analogies in this world so that you understand what is going on. It has been a challenge to get the new maps downloaded into humanity's cell phone of your brain computer operating system. It has been challenging to get the guidance in here. So I want you to know that you have an enormous amount of support, higher dimensional, external dimensional, extra dimensional, purely spiritual, whatever is the word that you use to embody that concept. Great conductor, remember the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy as being just one conductor of one philharmonic, but there is a great conductor that is conducting all of these galactic experiences. You have enormous love and support from that level of being. It has been a challenge to get that expertise, greatness, excellence, exactitude, information to get into this system, into your closed terrarium. And the terrarium has been like losing vitality, plants are dying, it's imbalances of atmospheric gases, and then what's going to happen eventually? Down. That would be, an end to the system. The system being so imbalanced that it cannot sustain itself anymore, and something had to happen in terms of rectification, some way to get new maps downloaded, to get new ideas, energy, and information into the system. But wait, Laura, how do we do this? Like, this is challenging because it's all about, you guys have sent out that supplemental homework video, turning a sphere inside out without cutting it. Right? So if you can imagine you have a soap bubble or something that is made out of a membrane, like a thin film, and what you want to do is be able to turn it inside out, but you're not allowed to cut the actual membrane because that will destroy everything. That membrane is time, the bubble is time and dimensionality. And what we want to do is to be able to get new information inside of time, inside of the time bubble, and basically change and morph and turn it inside out, but without destroying the integrity of the time bubble itself. So the supplemental homework video is meant just to give you an idea of how human higher mouth in this time place would solve it. And what I gift to you, is the flying rainbow lasagna as my higher dimensional math solution to this puzzle or problem or math proof, which is it's beyond an equation. Like higher dimensional math is more like these, verbal puzzles. If this is true and this is true and this is true and this is true and this is true, then what's the other thing that needs to be true? So we have dimensional truths that are foundation truths that are also about cosmic law. And then there is my invention or my solution, the flying rainbow lasagna, which I embody because all of this truthfulness is done in embodiment, as opposed to merely sitting back on that cloud, whatever, drinking interdimensional champagne, like that relaxed, higher dimensional lifestyle that would seem far removed from any challenges or any duress or any difficulties. You're like, oh yeah, I got the solution to your problem. I'll sprinkle it down like magical fairy dust, like everything will be totally fine. That's not the way it is done. It is done through embodiment. So I conceive of and embody the solution to this challenge of how to get new information in, of how to turn the sphere of time inside out without cutting it or deforming it or changing it. And I act as a flying rainbow lasagna oscillating bridge between in here and out there. That's air quotes around both in here and out there. Language difficulties, but I know that you're getting my telepathic downloads. And thank you to everyone who telepathically dances with and connects with me on that level. Because what is really happening in these videos, like, of course, I'm speaking on the level of human intellect and on the level of established language. And I'm also speaking on the level of pure energy, and the level of pure energy is non-local. And I will speak to that more in the notes that I share today. So all of that, part one was all about the interdimensional ethics of when you embody a genetic form, it's just like having a stringed instrument, like a piano, a harp, a guitar. The strings are the various strings of your DNA. So you have all of this cellular structure that is filled with trillions of vibrating strings, and the established comprehension that what your strings are doing is they have a genetic dance and a genetic behavior, that they are at times tightly coiled up into chromosomal shapes. But that's only a brief moment of their lifespan. And at other times they are unfurled so that they can be read, copied, blueprints can be made not only of protein structures, but also of events in reality. And that the pattern of furling, unfurling, it twists itself, the DNA twists itself up, it makes these circles or wreaths or plasmids, it joins them together like a ring, it unjoins them, it twists, it do-si-dos, it reconnects, it has an amazing level of linguistic behavior. Just like dance can tell a story, gesture can tell a story beyond language, DNA, dancing, movement, and behavior tells a story beyond language. And in part one, I described how really what has happened, and I'll go over this again. When you first came here, mostly, like I'm a walk-in, but most people have been born into an infant baby body that you gestated in your mother's womb. When you first came here, you were still connected to God consciousness. Your DNA still had more or most of its natural dancing behavior. You didn't know about the concept of death. All that you knew about was the concept or basic eternal truth of life. And I'll just reaffirm that to you. Life is the truth and the true pattern of the music of life. Let me play it for us here. Hold on a second. I need to play the music of life. Thing is turning on. Music of life. Music of life. That sounded terrible, because I have it set up on weird settings for my synthesizer here. Music of life. That sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty uplifting. Good, positive chord. Music of life. The music of life is really the true truthfulness of everything. And what we experience in terms of mortality and the wrong notes, those are actually not eternal truths. They are temporal experiences. They arise as the byproduct merely of being submerged in time and being limited and sometimes playing the wrong notes through that level of being submerged in time. So you come here as a newly formed human into this particular body, genetic structure, and human acculturalization world, and then begin to learn and embody and imprint based upon those beings who are around you, parents, ancestors, social culture, teachers, babysitters, everybody who touches you and raises you and exposes you to other established DNA patterns that are in their bodies. And they teach you about death. They teach you about cellular or somatic aging and decrepitude. And they teach you about disease. And none of this is intentional. Like, I want you to know, like, no one malevolently is like, I'm going to take this perfect baby and I'm going to do bad stuff to, I'm like smiling like a maniac. Like, no, I'm not a maniac. And I don't think that anybody's parents or ancestors or grandmas or grandpas are a maniac either. However, it must be acknowledged that unwittingly or unintentionally, when the new little infant is exposed to or imprinted upon social and cultural behavior patterns, already established ancestral and cultural DNA dances and behaviors, a lot of it is destructive as opposed to constructive, just because don't have a lot of positive role models in this time and place. Mostly the role models are about the inevitability of the decrepitude of moving through time. Like as you move through time, your face will become more wrinkled, and then your back will become bent over, and you have to walk with a cane. And then one day you'll fall over dead and be in a grave, and the worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, and they play pinochle on your nose. Like this is like how we teach little kids about what's going to happen to you. And I'm also lighthearted about this. But now it is time for a new genetic program. And all of this in order to say that when I'm here speaking to you, this is the first part of like, Aurora, how do we learn the flying rainbow lasagna? What was the flapping of the moving mouth parts? Like you're giving me so many words here. Yes, because part of what I do is exemplify new genetic behavior. And I would be affecting the strings of your stringed instrument, even if I lived in an isolated Himalayan cave with no internet connectivity and I just sat there meditating and existing. Yes, my genetic song would be broadcasting out, and my thought structure would be broadcasting out, because time, DNA, and thought structure are non-local, meaning that they meet and interpenetrate and connect with one another, just as I have described the galactic level of intelligence or intellect or consciousness, galaxy talking to galaxy, not through a light or a radio wave that flies from point A to point B, but from the bringing together, the folding of time and space. All light is now, actually. All time is now, all light. The interconnectedness, interrelationship, and no space that is the truth of light. Light, you would say it is non-local, or it is quantum entangled, that the seeming distance between your self-state here in a body, and I did this in another one of these, or classes that I did just over the past couple of weeks. You as an emanation of the sun and the stars, you as embodied light, the calcium in your bones as being an emanation from the death gasp and death explosion of a star that was, whatever, millions or billions of years ago, and that all of your neurological structure, the, electricity flowing in your wires and all the food that you eat and everything that you are right now is being an emanation from the sun that is still alive in the sky, beaming this stuff to you. You are made of light. There is actually no distance between you and the sun. The sun is not 93 million miles away. It does not take 8 minutes for light from the sun to reach us here. It takes no time, because you have the singularity, or this infinity point, or this God connective point inside of you not only in one place. I can point to places on my dress where it's represented, not only in one place, like in your heart or in here, in the center of every single somatic cell of your body, in the center of every energy center, in the totality of your being, at the center of the planet that you're on, at the center of the star that you emanate from, at the supermassive black hole at the center of your galaxy. And that's just this philharmonic. That's just this level of the symphony of life. And there is also that same connectivity point, millions of doorways to the same infinity, pulling back on the grand scale for all of you, that connects you to all light everywhere. That's your true identity. That's the trueness of everything that is happening. So that you keep keeping all of that in mind in terms of your mind and your personal experience, reaching outward and having an impact or a connection on others. This speaks to recap. I'm only on recap. It's been 43 minutes. Only on recap from last week's presentation of the interdimensional ethics of reciprocal influence for beings that emit frequency. You send and receive frequency. You emit frequencies and you receive them from others. You emit thoughts and you receive them from others. And all of this is righteous and appropriate. You're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be alive. You're allowed to be alive. And you're sending out stuff to others, and others are affecting you. The planetary invasion that I allude to in this teaching, but not giving you the full teaching. And I just had a dream about this too. The Invaders from Mars, that's a movie, Invaders from Mars. And I wrote a song recently called Sweeping Up the Sands of Mars, because that's what I was doing in my dream, like the emotional detritus and residue of those beings that once lived on Mars, and we could understand Mars as an actual planet, and we can also understand Mars as a warlike state of being. Get it? Like the war, the warrior, the barbarians, the red planet, and Earth as being the peaceful planet, and that they had a problem on their planet that was largely self-created, and that they were largely irresponsible in their use of time bending and twisting and morphing technology, and that they cut the time bubble and it effed up things in their reality, but our realities are connected and they came into our genetic code. This speaks to Aurora. Why do we have genetic blockages? And this speaks to why are we using the flying rainbow lasagna to, like the little ant, jump up and over genetic blockages. The piles of crapola that I also lightheartedly allude to, because I'm not an idiot when I smile in these ways. It is important to remain strong in recognizing the challenges and the difficulties that we face. And so part of it is having some sense of humor and lightheartedness. It ain't easy. Big challenge. Thank you. Drinking on the marathon here. Yeah, big challenges in terms of facing what is inside of one's own body and DNA. So I said that some of the challenges that we jump up and over are cultural imprints from mommy, daddy, grandma, priests, rabbis, teachers, American presidents, authority figures, everybody who you come into the world and they say, I'm older and I'm an adult and I'm a grown up and I know what I'm talking about and this is the way the world is. And they imprint upon you different biological realities, cultural realities, and expectations of realities, including death. It's not just that. It's also stuff that was programmed into the body here. And briefly, anecdotally, like when I first came into my body, which was a regular human body up until the point that I flying rainbow lasagna did 20 years ago, and I tried to eat nothing but pure sunlight. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, why is this not enough? I did not comprehend, because I come from a time place when I'm like, yes, we just eat pure light. And that is like what you do. That's how you take care of yourself. It's how you nourish a body. Didn't know and understand about the genetic degradation that had been done to the human form in creating a mortal form and requiring denser levels of food. Don't go against the reality of requiring denser levels of food. It's something that I want to say, don't feel guilt, don't feel shame, don't feel a sense of burdensomeness about it. What I have done in my own body being is find a way to create a new mental, genetic, and expectation program of understanding food as light. And I've done this teaching for everyone in this class. Food as solidified light. When you eat that light, recognize and remember that you are connecting directly to the sun. And that light becomes, in a sense, alchemically transformed or redefined as your body being is light, your food is light, you're putting light into light, and you become a light system even as you are feeding these levels of density. Density is also not something that is bad, wrong, or evil. Density can be your friend. I will go into a deeper teaching on this more, but for right now, let me just show you in this flying rainbow lasagna, when we turn that torus or time bubble inside out, there remain two places of connectivity. One is this red outer edge. You can see in the sculpture what's holding things together, where my fingers are touching. That's the red outer edge, the level of physicality of denser embodiment. Denser embodiment is not something bad, wrong, or evil. Like there are so many things that are about like let me get out of my body, let me jump out of my body, let me go into a higher dimensional state. Like, escapism, Calgon, take me away. I joke about that. It's an old commercial of bubble bath. Because one time I said, Calgon, take me away. And people said, like, is Calgon extraterrestrial? I'm like, no, Calgon was a type of bubble bath. And the commercial was this lady who was overwrought in her life. And she would say, Calgon, take me away. It's about escapism. This is not about escaping from the red level of your life and getting out of your body and in many ways demeaning your body and being like, body, I don't like you and I have to buy toilet paper and I have to eat and I have to feed you and it's so burdensome. No, it is actually not supposed to be that way. It is actually supposed to be a celebration and appreciation that this density level of being in a physicality structure and in a cellular body and at this level of embodiment of what I call like a mortal form, but we're changing and redefining what it is. It's the stage upon which all of these other vectors and forces play out. All of this stuff is intangible. Everything in the upper levels of the spectrum up from red is intangible, including your emotions and your thoughts and your heart and your insight, your Christ consciousness and your connection to the divine. Those are all the things that you can't weigh on a scale. The world of physics is everything, and Sir Isaac Newton, I taught about that, is all about this red outer edge. So in the sculpture, you can see when I hold it up to the camera, the red outer edge connects everything, and then it connects at one other point too. The source, the violet area, the singularity or the infinity point. So like here, like, look, orange does not connect to orange, yellow does not connect to yellow, green does not connect to green. All of these levels of reality connect to each other by going through the red level, through your physicality body, through the area of you that is an actual cellular structure. So instead of coming into this body and being like, harumph, now I have a stupid cellular structure that I have to deal with, and it's so burdensome, and it's so this, and it's so that, and I'm being facetious in the way that I say these things. I'm exaggerating it quite a lot, but no, what I do and what I did is continually celebrate. I'm like, this is so great. I have physical real estate. I'm in the physical body. I have actual cells. I have an actual physical instrument that I use to play some physical music. Playing with my DNA. Yeah, this sounds amazing. I have a cellular structure and yeah, that is how it is supposed to be. That is the celebration. And it also means through my physical body, I can express all of these other layers of intangibility. Yeah. And what we are doing when we do Flying Rainbow Lasagna is maintaining the physicality, but redefining what physicality and physical structure is. Remember what I taught about with Einstein's equation? E on one side, my face is the equal sign, matter, MC squared on the other side. Matter versus energy, matter versus energy, matter versus energy. Matter, the matter of your body, red stuff over here, versus energy, all of this stuff over here. But the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and being a full spectrum human is a holistic whole. We take this whole entire thing, seeming opposites, we join them together, and all of a sudden I have, wait, matter and energy on the same side of the equation? What does that do with the scales? If this is like a balance beam or scales, it sends it way, way, way down. Everything is heavy over here. What would be the balance to that? Infinity. Matter plus energy equals infinity. When you use the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, the oscillation, this new genetic dance form in a higher dimensional state, what you are doing is bringing matter and energy together in your physical body presence, redefining what your physical body presence is. Your matter of your body, which again, is not just merely gestated out of the potato chips, pickles, ice cream, whatever, weird things that your mother ate and through pregnancy cravings, strawberry jam. When you were gestating in the womb, you're not just like, I'm a molecule of strawberry jam and I'm a molecule of sour cream and pickles, that you are actually much more than that. You are quantum created matter that you are here embodying. And what you become when you fly Rainbow Lasagna with your quantumly created matter, gestated, beautiful container here is matter that responds directly to thought, as opposed to Sir Isaac Newton's description of matter as matter is just matter, it is just dead, stupid stuff. It sits there on a plate and it does nothing. It is just inert. It does not respond to thought or to consciousness. And then Einstein's segue, transitionary understanding into, but wait, quantum observership does affect matter. It affects how light travels. It affects how light and light waves are perceived into what is the present state of development of human consciousness, the understanding, comprehension, and full expression that you as thought consciousness, you as God consciousness absolutely affect matter, create matter, are affected by your thoughts and your self state, and most certainly in the expression of your physicality of your body, your own personal real estate, because we get into levels of interdimensional ethics. So for example, Charlie is his own person. Lucy, Angela, you are your own people. I affect you with the music. Hold on a second, play some music. Music that I'm sending out. I affect you with the music that I'm sending out. Hold on a second. I clearly pressed some very wild buttons. Let me turn it off so it's not too distracting. My music that I send out is clearly affecting other people on a cellular level. And similarly, your thought forms and your music that you send out affect me. This is what it is to be a tele-empath, telepathy, empathy. That's what it is to be in existence in my self state as Aurora, the collective, as part of a symphony of consciousness and a symphony of life. The feeling of other feelings coming back towards you. And it is a huge sense of personal accountability. What is inside of me, you are feeling, and then also what you are feeling becomes inside of me. That is, oh, do I have that picture? Let me see if I can go to that picture pretty fast. Hold on a second. Yeah. Hold on one second. Let me do my share screen. I know I make squinty scrolly faces. This sketch from my sketchbook, where you can see you have the Christ consciousness chakra, the Indigo Chakra, at the center of this human anthropomorphic mind brain. And all of these other human forms, kind of like lightly sketched, you know, people with arms and legs, with their heads all facing towards that inner sun star. That is the allegory for all of these consciousnesses who cluster together, who are all part of self-state. That's what it starts to happen when you're inside and you're outside. All the people that you're connecting with telepathically and feeling emanations from inside of you, you begin to say, I am them and they are me. And same thing with you guys, you begin to feel Aurora is an externalization of an internal self-state, and Aurora is inside of me and Aurora is outside of me. And we begin to feel all of these things. This is part of the beginning of unity consciousness, radical self-accountability and self-responsibility, and accountability and responsibility. Hello, welcome, Megan, just tuning in, to those of us who are externalized aspects of self. This goes to interdimensional ethics of, am I allowed to be here? Yes, you're allowed to be here. Am I allowed to affect you? Yes, I'm allowed to affect you. Are you allowed to affect me? Yes, you are allowed to affect me. How about the piles of crapola? How about the piles of crapola? Because it's so much nicer when like a bunch of nice people are affecting each other. And we are in that. That's what my Aurora collective is like. That's what it is like at the higher dimensional levels of love and above, where everybody has worked out their issues, their problems, and their pain. And there is not that level of suffering. There is only the beautiful music that is being played by many multiple musicians together. In this level of what we are experiencing, in returning to the crystalline consciousness that was distorted, that self-state that has been inhibited in humanity, what's been happening is a ton of inner conflict, a ton of inner duality, a ton of thing fighting against thing, and locked in that tensegrity, internal struggle. Like, I have stuff inside of me. Part of me wants this and part of me wants this, and I want to fight this and I want to fight this. And a lot of it is the internal struggle, the internal battle, and is exemplified in cultural wars and tribal wars in our world. If you want to know, Aurora, like, why are there wars? Why do humans fight against humans? Why does brother fight against brother? Why is this happening? The answer is because of consciousness at this lower level that basically needs profound healing, that is still on this journey towards unity consciousness, that has become locked in an inner battle inside of people's bodies. You got inner conflict inside of your bodies, and that is challenging news to receive. Also can be looked at as positive news, because inside of your body, your epidermis, these are like the boundaries of your self-state. So I could call this like Auroraville, like inside of my epidermis is Auroraville, and I get to make the rules of what's going on inside of me. I'm empowered to make choices about what is going on inside of my self-state. And so if I sense an inner conflict inside of me, I can heal, rectify, and restructure it. That is righteous and appropriate. And also knowing that I then send out that music to other people. This is how I rectified my self-state. And you can do something similar. The healing that you do, work that you do internally, relieving yourself of ancestral trauma within your biological lineage, relieving yourself of personally, individually experienced trauma, healing the trauma of the self-state that fell, quote unquote, from grace, in moving from the antediluvian immortal state into this embodiment state of mortality. That is the primary trauma that humans are dealing with, or embodied people are dealing with right now in this time place. Healing all of those things inside of you is a sacred and profound, necessary, positive activity that should be validated on every level, because you are not swimming around in your own private kiddie pool of consciousness. You are connected to the ocean of consciousness. You are connected through your mind state and through your DNA, musical reverberations to everybody else. And when you do the healing inside of you, it is a profound and significant act in that it radiates outward and becomes something that touches on other lives and other layers of the time tapestry of concurrent lives and concurrent existence. Let me take a brief moment. Let me drink a little bit for me. Then let me really get into my notes, because I've just been speaking kind of extemporaneously, but I want to make sure I take the notes so that I make sure I get through everything that is in the recorded lessons. And I will just continually invite and encourage everyone, go through the recorded lessons, because they're really profound. And every time I go through them, I'm like, it's like when you rewatch your favorite movie, like, that part is good. I didn't remember that part is good. You get reminded of, and also we learn through repetition. Go back and watch the recorded lessons. It's worth it. Thank you for understanding on my electrolyte water. Okay. So the flying rainbow lasagna and new vibrations. The resulting new vibrations that are available to species on planet Earth and elsewhere. Big understanding. I've come here from outside of time, space, and dimensionality into a human female body in this world that we call Earth. What I do with this Earth body affects definitely the other organisms or creatures or levels of consciousness who are here on Earth and also elsewhere. DNA is available and is used elsewhere. Consciousness is elsewhere. Light is elsewhere, part of an enormous continuum of light. I got through that already. The non-locality of light and the interconnectedness of consciousness. So what I do here in this particular life experience radiates outward to all of you, and also radiates outward in the music of consciousness into many other layers of being. And that's also part of the motivation of like, why should I be here? Is it valuable for me to be here? It also should be informative to you on your own personal life journey. Like, does my life matter? Am I a silly earthling, buying coffee and toilet paper at the store? You are much, much more than that. What you do in your personal life milieu is important in this context here now, and radiates outward to other time planes, parallel dimensions, other cultures, other versions of self that are going through similar struggles. And your triumphs are triumphs reverberating across the ages and across dimensionality and throughout many galactic planes. The acknowledgement that human DNA's current structure has been interfered with, went through that already. It has been limiting the connectivity between humans and the sun. So I did that beautiful teaching all about how you are made of light and you're an emanation from the sun. And you might need these reminders because that might be a more obvious just basic truth if humans weren't, in a sense, cut off from their solar connection and from their divine connection. And when I do it up here, it's not just up here, like this sense, like I'm moving from point A to point B, and then there's this, blockage or like, a linear journey across. That's an allegory. It is really the totality of your body, like a big giant sphere, that every single cell or aspect of your body should be connected to light, and that is what it is to have a coherent light body. So this is just a representation, not a literalism, of like something that is blocking you from your crown connection to the sun and the stars. But there's been a limitation in the connectivity, like not getting enough cell phone connectivity, being in a dead zone, not being able to get your GPS going, not being able to download new maps, not being able to have that level of insight. Humans were originally created as a perfect connector between the corporeal world of flesh and the world of divine solar consciousness. That's the brochure. When you got offered the brochure of like, would you like to embody? Like, please read our brochure. Would you like to have the experience of being in a body? You read it and it's like, wait a minute, I'm going to be a bridge. I'm going to be God in a body made by God, making a bridge between this level of density red, and all the way up to this level of non-density pure energy, moving at the fastest rate it is possible to conceive of. Like, yes, sign me up. I want to go on that cruise. That is the brochure of everything perfect. And then it turns out it was the Titanic, and that you thought it was a beautiful cruise, and then you ended up hitting the iceberg and going down to the bottom of the ocean, which is literally where we are right now, into this world of mortality where we got cut off from the sun and the stars and divinity. So yes, the perfect brochure. And when I write these, when I paint these time structures and show you about what it is to be, you know, an embodied person on the level of these drawings and paintings here, like this painting over here, that's the brochure. It's a reminder. That is what you signed up for. Perfectly balanced chakras, everything in perfect alignment, everything divinely patterned. And yes, that would lead to eternal life. And it is a glory to be in a body like that, where you are completely the embodiment of this divinity or pure essence or pure intellect or pure signal of intelligence and organizational principle. Very, very different, contrasting with the experience of what it has been like up to this point for many humans and many different levels of reality to be cut off from that signal. And that is where the wibbly wobbliness of chakras comes from. That is where disease comes from. That is where death comes from. That is where pain and suffering come from. All of those things as not being part of the brochure. I call the complaints department. I did not sign up for death, suffering, loss, grief, any of these things that have been happening to me. And I know I speak about that in a facetious and lighthearted way. It's a very, very real, valid concern that I am with you and reverberating with you. I've experienced pain and loss and suffering in being here in the body. Like, you know, I talk about example, like my cat or my friend who died, passed on. And like, yes, there's very real pain that comes from that. And that none of that was experienced in the antediluvian world of Atlantis. None of that was experienced in our concurrent experiences of immortality. Ascension is different than death. We didn't lose each other. And the pain and the suffering is real. And the disconnect from God is, I should say, instead of real, a genuine, validated suffering. Never to be a sociopath and be like, it is a mere fiction and it's all fictional suffering. No, your suffering and the profundity of what you experience in pain in this cauldron of being is very valid. And that it is also part of the soul refinery. When I speak about these structures as being a refinery of your soul, so that you're going from being slanted and hitting the membrane of death and circulating around again to going up the central core timeline. You're in a refinery of experience and you are becoming more and more you, more focused like a laser, like when you have binoculars and you use the lenses to focus in order to get a clear picture. The clear picture of you and who you truly are is being made, or in the same way that iron is forged in a, in a place where they make swords and things like that. Like, you're being forged and hammered and smashed in a cauldron, and you're becoming incredibly strengthened through this experience, not according to the brochure, but still a worthy experience. I frame it in that way so that you understand, like, what are these piles of crapola and why we're going through all of this. Static on the line. Interlopers came in and interspliced their own DNA into the existing earthly DNA. This is the story of antediluvian world, concurrent, and the fall. It was the invention of disease. Previous to that, prior to that invention of disease and invention of death, an invention of mortality structure, viruses, pathogenic and opportunistic microbial invaders could not exist. It's like saying there was a time before fleas or parasites could exist, because imagine your energy field is so powerful and so strong, like a flea can't even get to you to eat you or bite you. All of these things, these creatures, these parasites, piranhas, putis, whatever we want to describe them as having no capacity to eat you or bite you or get anything from you, because your energy field is being so strong and divinely connected. Yeah, so in such a state of divine connection that diseases and pathogenic invaders or opportunistic viruses simply could not be a part of the human body form. It was a state of total vitality. And just to clarify and emphasize, it was a time, most certainly, when humans could not experience something that would be considered a genetic disease, such as cancer. No Cancer. And this is very big on, you know what I'm talking about. I'm teaching you the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Right now we're working on the intellectual word-based embodiment of it. As I'm telling you about this, I'm telling you with my words. Words affect your genetic behavior. Cancer is not just some inevitability. It's not just some weird random mutation or something like that. It is something that exists as an opportunistic pathogen within the time code, and it becomes, here, I'll read it out to you here. So I'll go through this in my notes. Think about DNA as the physical conduit or portal through which stellar emanations manifest. Got it? Your DNA as the doorway or the portal or the connection through which the thoughts and feelings and potentialities of the sun and the stars and the great conductor and the conductor of the various philharmonics act and give you music through your DNA. Light or consciousness is manifesting on a molecular level as the twisting, morphing, dancing patterns of your genes as they go through their processes of opening up, unfurling, furling, and being read, right? The experience here of being cut off from the source is not a natural experience. This is not the natural resting state of who you are as human being, and not the natural format of human genes. Human genes were tampered with, and not just once, but actually many times. So it's not just like, oh, you fell. It's more like, ka-chunk, you fell. And then you fell again, or were pushed, like all that old joke. Like, did that guy fall off a cliff? Yeah, fell off a cliff, was pushed. Yeah, you fell, and then you fell again, ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. But these were all genetic modifications, not necessarily something that you just accidentally happened, or that whatever, not just happenstance or circumstance. You were modified many, many times. Genes are connected to timelines. This is what I'm getting at. DNA is a connection to time. DNA is not just the physical blueprint of who you are. Your DNA behavior determines where you are in that time vortex. If you're headed towards the membrane of death, or if you are nice, in perfect alignment with your ascension pathway, is literally expressed by the way that your DNA is dancing and moving. Your thought patterns and your emotional patterns affect your DNA dance patterns, and in reciprocity, your DNA dance patterns affect your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors. This is why we begin in this type of teaching and sharing Flying Rainbow Lasagna with you. I learned how people learn. The intellect is a gateway. The human hacked operating system, the level of yellow, that it was implanted with certain thoughts and ideas that then become like, I can't get information or energy past there. We got to talk to that gatekeeper. I give thought energy to the gatekeeper of your mind. I speak with words and tell you about it first. Even while I'm emanating, I'm playing my music and you're hearing my music. And I'm also speaking to your mind, because when you hear things like, wait a minute, like I can be immortal, like, wait a minute, I can think my way out of cancer. Wait a minute, like what are, blah, blah, blah. Like, stop, I'm resistant. I'm pretending to be you. I'm resistant. The gatekeeper is coming up and saying like that. I can't think that, that's delusional. That's wrong. That's how I'm not allowed to think these thoughts. All of these things come up. So it is big. So first, we put new ideas, energy, and information into the intellect. And I ask you to do yoga of the perception, yoga of the mind, like yoga, when you're like, I am going to stretch my spine, or I'm going to stretch my legs and my hip bones. And at first I can stretch them this far apart. And then after doing it for many months, then I can stretch them this far apart. And then at a certain point, I do the full back bend and I stretch all the way back the way that I can do it. That is what I ask for you to do with your intellect and with your mind. In total love and compassion, I recognize that humanity has been implanted with these not only genetic limitations, but thought, structure, and expectation limitations about, do you have to die? Do you have to grow old? Is cancer something normal that everybody just happens to get? I'm being facetious. No, you don't just happen to get it, and it's not just normal, even though it might have been normalized through its prevalence in this time place. But first we speak to the intellect, who's the gatekeeper, who says what is and is not possible in your physical body. Your mind state, thinking about what is and is not possible in your physical body. Humans do amazing things with their bodies all the time that are technically beyond what your mind can comprehend or can expect. And you really do have superpowers, and you really are able to achieve what would be considered superhuman states that are beyond what the intellect can appreciate, comprehend, or allow to happen. And these include things that might be considered miraculous expressions or supernatural powers that are often attributed to spiritual cultivators of self through various traditions. Like when I talk about creating your own energy field and staying warm without a heater to keep you warm, there are monks in the Himalayas, and what they do as some of their training or initiation exercises is in the wintertime, they are sent out into the cold, and you have to put a wet cloth or sheet around you. So it's not just being cold, but also hypothermic, with the water being on you too, that cools you down further. And what they have to do is sit in meditation and raise their inner core energy until the point that they're able to be warm, and they can even like dry out the sheet. Like they can keep themselves warm and even dry the water-soaked cloth that they are surrounded with. So this is like a practice that's been going on in their ancestral lineage for a long amount of time. And it's not meant to be the end goal big. It is meant to be a journey, and it is meant to be helping practitioners to get past the intellectual gatekeeper. Because when you do something that is seemingly impossible and you survive it and you stay alive, you exist as your own proof. You're like, I did that thing and I stayed alive, and I know that even more is possible in my body. So that is the intention behind these cultivators. As a cultural aside, in the 1950s, when many of these monks were being persecuted by the incoming communist Chinese totalitarian state that was locking up a lot of the monks and practitioners in the area of Tibet, Nepal, China, India, that whole area, a lot of them were put into very cold holding cells, like intentionally. Be like, hose them down, put them in the cell. Like, these guys are all going to die of hypothermia. We're going to dust off your hands. We're going to get rid of all these pesky monks. Like, we're going to get rid of them. They're going to freeze to death. And a lot of them utilized their inner practices through meditation to keep themselves warm, to stay alive. So it ended up being something that, like, they lasagna, like things did not happen the way that they thought it was going to happen. It is possible to achieve superhuman states in your own body, in your own life. You might not face a challenge, something that is set up like going into the frozen cold North Mountains and keeping yourself warm with your self state and with your divine connection. However, you might very much face something like transcending a disease, staying alive and healthy, even in a world where you might be bathed by 5G frequencies or have chemtrail crapola sprayed on you or any of those things. Model your expectation of what you can do based upon the knowledge. Intellectual gatekeeper says, but wait, others have done this. I can do this too. Model yourself upon flying rainbow lasagna. Wait, I literally transcended the death of this physical body form to be here and have been busy healing and rectifying the physical cellular state for about 20 years. I've done a ton of whatever you call it, handyman, fix it, DIY, fix it up when you move into a house, and they call it a fixer-upper. Done a lot of remodeling inside. It is possible for me. It is possible for you, the intellectual gatekeeper. So I speak to your intellect in order to tell you with words, and then later what happens is you're able to believe, you're able to set aside the limitations that are programmed in on an intellectual level. Your thought structure changes, your belief structure changes, and then your DNA dance changes. So all of these lessons that you are engaging in, first of all, I thank you, I love you, I hug you. Thank you for the time that you spend and the attention that you place here and your commitment to yourself and your commitment to these teachings, listening to the recorded lessons and being here as part of the lectures and thinking about these thoughts. These are valuable and valued activities, and your own healing radiates upon and touches on others. Playing better music with your own instrument. And as you think these thoughts, what you are also doing is beginning to open the doorway, the gatekeeper, to your genetic behavior changing and transforming. And then as you do that more and more, you experience and achieve more what would be called supernatural or beyond belief or inexplicable according to the rules of science and objective materialism experiences. And just like the monks, the more that you experience it, the more that you know you have done it, the more you know you can do it, the more you actually do it, and it becomes a positive self-feedback loop where you're like, yes, I did that miraculous thing, and then I did that miraculous thing, and then that miracle happened, and then that miracle happened, and you're moving into a time of what would be considered or defined as pure miracles, just getting my drink here, pure miracles, or supernatural occurrences, or occurrences that are beyond the explanation or expectation of scientific objective materialism. And I'm very clear when I talk about miracles and supernatural states, you are God, and I also give so much credit and love and recognition to God, that central place that has emanated us, that great conductor. And if we are emanations of light, we're that, and we're here experiencing this, and we are returning to that. It's a recognition of your own self state that created this, and then a return to that self state. So I'm very big on that too. It's a positive recognition of God divinity, not as something that is externalized or something to say please, oh please do this thing for me. Recognition that that is who you are on this journey, and you are recognizing yourself. Back to what genetic diseases are. So your genes are connected to timelines. Your genetic behavior, furling and unfurling, once you get past your gatekeeper, has everything to do with whether your chakras are to the side or whether they are, according to the brochure, perfectly stacked up the way they're supposed to be. Some diseases, such as cancer, are DNA diseases. And if A is to B and B is to C, then C is to D. A is to D, it means that cancer is a disease of timelines. You got it? Cancer is not just some random mutation or something that inexplicably happens. Your DNA is connected to time. Cancer is a malformation or malbehavior of your DNA structure and what you're supposed to be doing and what you're supposed to be making with your cells of your body. And your DNA is also a connection to time and timelines and the possibilities that you're supposed to be experiencing. Cancer is a malformation of timelines. And when you begin to understand it in that sense, I talk about time, space, and dimensionality and consciousness all the time as being a being, like an animal, the time animal. When I talk about being a protector of time, a time cop or law enforcement, what I mean is I am a protector of the time animal. I'm like, I live within that larger being structure self state, and I want it to stay alive. I want me to stay alive on that level. And I see the stuff that's going on, and I'm like, not allowed, not allowed, not allowed, not allowed, not allowed. Not just in the sense of being like a school teacher, like shaking my finger, like, no, but bad school children, like, no, not even in that sense, but in a very protective sense of like, oh, no. Like, if you do all of that crapola and you do all of that crapola, all of that snowballs, all of that comes together and creates momentum that has a destabilization effect on the larger levels of time remaining alive, or time remaining coherent, or time remaining a structure that can be something that we experience. Time is this incredible miracle event thing that we are in that is amazing. And it's a phenomenon is what I should say. A phenomenon. Like, wow, this thing is happening that is time. And it's a great unlikelihood. And there are all of these things where, like, if you imbalance things enough, or if you F with things enough, then you don't have that phenomenon anymore. And it is not like, it's not like it goes away in a good way. Like, it's like a fragmentation, a destruction, a nightmare, a bad thing, a negative catastrophe. It's not just like, oh, like it poofs away and there's nothing. It's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's not like a peaceful nothingness at all. That there are these things that do things like destabilize timelines through diseases like cancer. It's not okay. It's not okay. And my law enforcement self steps forward in the sense of being hugely protective of the time field itself. Like, hey, that's the larger presence that I live within. Duh, That's the larger presence that we all live within. Duh. Stop creating piles of crapola that are affecting all of us through all these levels of being. Stop throwing your trash into our dimension. That's a joke from a movie or a cartoon series. But all lightheartedness aside, that is very much what motivates and motivated me to create Flying Rainbow Lasagna and to inhabit and embody this level of being, the sense of being personally involved. Like, it's not just that one woman being killed down there. It's not just one timeline being cut or one level of disruption in the level of the time tapestry. Oh, this is affecting the whole ball of wax. Oh, this whole entire thing is going down the tubes and being destabilized because of that. And its causality factor, that, and that. All light is connected. All consciousness is connected. All your lives are connected. Your lives radiate outward and connect on others. You matter. And I'll make a joke. You matter, and you energy, and you matter. You get it? Like matter and energy. I know, lighthearted. But yeah, some diseases like cancer are genetic diseases, and your genes are connected to time and control time and are reciprocally affected by time. They are time diseases. Cancer is a time disease. It affects time and timelines. It affects the larger time animal. It's big. And now let's get into what is DNA. Wait, maybe first I should go to this question. Because Lyson says, yeah, very challenging to be a free multidimensional human in alignment with your eternal self and your eternal timeline in this death cult culture daily struggle. Thank you for that recognition. I'm here in solidarity with you, and I'm here to offer genuine bucket and a mop ways of cleaning up crapola so that, again, we don't have to just daintily tiptoe around all this stuff. And I really appreciate your recognition of death cult. That phrase, I think, is very effective because it is in some ways the worshiping of death, or the worshiping or recognition of the supposed necessity of death that can come out in many different cultural forms that might be about religious paradigms, or that might be even about war and the necessity of war as being like, nation state, socio-political sacrifice. We're like, we got to kill this many people in order to keep our people safe, like, or we got to do a nuclear bomb in order to keep this many people safe. Like, oh my goodness, there are many self-conflictive illogics that are here in this world that Lyson acknowledges and I acknowledge, and I'm here in solidarity with you. These things do not make sense. Like, if you want to keep people safe, but you're acting like this, but you're creating a lot of death, but supposedly to save life, but none of these things make sense, to tell you the truth. And it is because of the self-conflictive nature of humans who have a genetic code that has a bunch of invaders inside of it, invaders, or let's say things that were spliced in that are not part of your original natural self state, that have to do with what I jokingly refer to as the barbarian culture, but it has to do with like warlike culture, lower dimensional motivations, and the sense of survival being at the base level of survival, as opposed to recognizing that survival of the time animal comes from reciprocal support and respect as a empath. So I'll also just briefly say, as a empath, the time animal feels everything that we are going through, just like you feel everything in the cells of your body. If you have a problem in your elbow, like, you feel it. If you have a systemic infection, your whole body feels like, oh, I feel crap, I have a systemic infection. The time animal feels everything, and also I feel everything. I'm a empath, and I will tell you that as I've been here on Earth over 20 years, or in this realm, however we describe it with our words, over 20 years, I have felt a lot of stuff in terms of suffering increasing. And the things that I felt leading up to, let's say, 2019, 2020, I felt an exacerbation, turning up the dial of human suffering increasing. I felt the consciousnesses of humans trying to connect to love, divine guidance, and higher ascension energies being suppressed and squashed even harder. Again, you didn't fall, you were pushed and being pushed down and having a lot of diminishment. And so I feel and felt all of that. I want you to know, like, your struggles are recognized, you are felt and seen and heard, and also you are not alone. And also there are very many effective things and tools that we can do. And that, what I say with my words, is part of the changing of the actions of your DNA. This teaching today is about going beyond the sense of fate, fatalism, fatal not meaning dead, but meaning something is fated to happen. That was the original idea of DNA. If it's written in your DNA, it's there. It's going to happen. You are fated to experience that. But the more recent refinement of human comprehension of saying epigenetics means some things are scrolled up and they might be written in your DNA, but they're not fated to happen because you don't end up reading from that stuff and making those things happen. They are tightly coiled. And then even the idea of flying rainbow lasagna, which means, what if we change the words? What if we take the book known as the telephone book and we cut out all the letters and rearrange all the letters, and instead of random weird letters and words, disconnected and disjointed, what if we turn it into a great masterpiece like War and Peace or Hamlet by Shakespeare or something like that, whatever you consider to be the greatest literature of your world? That we can take something that is seemingly random detritus, the telephone book, and turn it into great literature. Taking what is considered to be junk DNA or DNA with crap behavior, making diseases and other things happen that you don't want to experience, and instead change the letters, rearrange what you've got, turn and twist the Rubik's Cube of who you are until you restructure your being into a divine perfection state that would be considered a masterpiece of pure literature. Rainbow Body has a beautiful comment. It says, Aurora, you're a great guide, not just a teacher. Thank you for that. It says, thank you. I wish everyone in class could experience the personal development sessions. Thank you. We have done sessions together. And she says, a miracle just happened here. Oh, I'm so happy and so pleased to hear that. Thank you for sharing that with us. That is hugely positive and very, very beautiful sharing. Thank you for that. I'm so pleased. And I would like you to share whatever you feel comfortable sharing publicly. I don't want to close that down. And I also want to keep going with my notes, have about another half hour, but we always go into overtime. But thank you for being here and thank you for sharing that so authentically with us. I'm going to go on with a little bit more of what I have to say. What is DNA? This is all in the notes here. Some of it is your ancestral consciousness. Some of it is ideas and information from previous generations and from portions of your inner operating system. Your operating system at the level of yellow in the conscious human mind is, or has been up until this point, seriously flawed. That is what creates the cellular aging, disease, and death, and that being cut off from source is an unnatural state. I've gone through all of this in the teaching of today. Our bodies were intended to last for a very long time. This is big, more than just a mere 100 years if you are lucky, and 100 years getting into decrepitude, but that you are really here in amazing, beautifully designed vehicle, that a clean car goes far. You know, like they say that at the car wash. Your car can go far. You got a great chassis. You can keep going for hundreds, if not thousands of years in this body through regeneration and through different ways of using the body. That it is not meant to die and be disposed of, and then you get a new one, whatever, like a disposable object or like Kleenex or something. Hold on, let me just drink a little bit more. Meant to be something that you can continue onward in your journey for an incredible amount of time. Hundreds, if not thousands of years, and that time that you spend in the body is meant to be a good quality of existence, not this diminished or mediocre quality of existence, no offense to anyone that we mostly have been experiencing here, but time spent in divine connection, knowing like I'm God and I made the world and I made this body and I'm in this body and I'm in this body making the world around me, and all these other people that are around me and organisms are also God in their bodies, making their bodies and making the world around me. In connection with higher divine consciousness and divine intelligence, meaning all of those maps are downloaded in real time, getting all of that God positioning system, GPS, guidance in real time. And these are guidance broadcasts that are brought to us through the sun and emanating through the central black hole of our galaxy as one philharmonic that is being conducted by an even greater conductor. It's the connection to the intelligence organizing principle. So basically, upshoot of all of this, to synopsize. Your DNA is an antenna that both sends and receives. You are supposed to be sending and receiving signals from God or the source of divine intelligence through your DNA. And that leads to extremely extended and eternal lifespan. This is big. emphasized in my notes, the flying rainbow lasagna as a way to get around the genetic break between humanity and the source. That is everything of why I'm here, why I created the flying rainbow lasagna, and what is my work in jumping back and forth. What is my vibratory or frequency work, my musical work? You know, I play the actual piano. In terms of the piano of my body, what am I doing? I'm creating a bridge, a way to get around this genetic break between humanity and the source. And it's not only something for me, that's very big. I initially did this. I'm like, I'm one person, and I figured out how to do this with the Rubik's Cube of my body. And then what I'm also doing is gifting it and sharing it with all of you. And gifts are given and gifts are offered. Gifts are not imposed, you know, or whatever, in some way forced upon you. So that's the whole philosophy behind everything that I do. Playing my music, sending it out to you. You can hear it and groove with it if you want to. And then you take these structures and behaviors and things that I offer, and you take it and run with it and make it your own. You internalize it as part of your own self state. Each one of you has your own unique genetic code, your own unique needs as consciousness, your own unique trajectory. The solution to your own Rubik's Cube must be unique to you. So you take what I do as an example and as a template, and then you also customize it for your own experience. You become your own genetic virtuoso. You become empowered on your own state. That is really, really big in terms of all of this. So it's different than saying like, you take my math homework and just copy the answers off of my math homework. That would be a type of solution. However, then that only works, you know, in a limited sense. This is really meant to be an empowerment. Profound empowerment of each one of you as each one of self, as each one of me, as aspects of God that are realizing and recognizing and remembering their own power and their own self state. And you learn how to solve the math problems yourself. And then in internalizing all of that divine intelligence, that's the soul refinery. When you move on to the next level, you're like, oh, I learned and mastered that. And I take all the lessons that I learned and mastered from what I went through, and I'm able to use that in going forward, which is different than if you simply used my math homework as a template and used it for this particular situation and then moved up to the next level. And we're like, well, wait a minute, like where is Aurora's math homework? Like you might feel like, okay, like what am I going to do now? So it's positive. It's all very incredibly positive, and I'm never being coy or holding something back from you. You're like, Aurora, like, just give us the answers to the math homework already. Like, just do it. I'm not that way at all. I'm absolutely giving you the total empowerment teaching and the total truth, which also involves and requires your self-accountability and self-responsibility, and you become a virtuoso. And at a certain point, you become a genetic songwriter. And however, like in physical music, initially, I didn't come here knowing how to play the piano, believe me, and I had to learn how to do it. And what I did first was I patterned my music on musicians that I love and admire, like John Coltrane and McCoy Tyner and Jimi Hendrix. Like, I'm going to learn from these guys. They know what they're doing. They are playing awesome music. And then by playing along with them, then I started to learn like, oh, wait, like these are patterns. These are patterns. These are patterns. And this is how you do it. And then at a certain point, music started to flow through me and I generated my own patterns. So I would say use that as a template for your own genetic journey. That at first you might be like, I like the music Aurora's playing. I like that song. I like the way that she's playing with the flying rainbow lasagna. I'm going to play a song that's similar to her. Good, super fantastic. I like that you're doing that. Please take my songs and then whatever is your favorite song. Like I usually use Stairway to Heaven as an example. Lots of people cover that song. It's a beautiful song. It's great songwriting. You take it and you run with it and you make it your own. You might change a certain part. You might phrase it differently. You might sing it a little differently. You might take a high note and bring it down a little bit because maybe you don't sing exactly like that singer. Totally righteous and appropriate. And then at a certain point, you start to create your own patterning where you're like, oh, this melody comes to me. And a melody is a series of events in time, a way of doing stuff with your body and approach to reality. I'm going to start making stuff out of my self state. I'm going to start DNA dancing. I'm going to start, you could call it genetically modifying, but it is really a return to factory settings. All of these falls that ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. And now you're down at the bottom of the ocean when you thought you would be on a beautiful pleasure cruise, sailing along, having this amazing experience. You're not, I would say, in terms genetically modifying, I would say you are unmodifying or returning yourself to factory settings and getting back to, climbing back up to, or reconnecting to the truly intended state of what life is supposed to be like when one is embodied here and connected to the divine. And then you remember, like, oh, I'm God. Of course, I'm God. I remember that I'm God. Each one of you has this remembrance, and I made my body and I made all this stuff happen. So the genetic breakages and the little ant walking across the flat dimensional time plane. And then here's an event or a limitation or a blockage or a thought structure that stands there and is like, nah, nanny poo poo. You can't get past me. I'm going to tell you what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, what's possible, what's not possible. Or in basketball, I'm in front of you, I'm blocking you, can't get around me, blocking you. You flying rainbow lasagna around it, flying rainbow lasagna up and over it. Flying rainbow lasagna as a way of believing in yourself and believing in something higher and believing in your innate superpowers, believing in your own innate, if dormant, divine capacity and divine identity, and jumping up and over that blockage that has existed in humanity for a long amount of time. And in that way, reclaiming the trueness of who you are. And this is the rectification of the time field, where you're no longer stuck at a dead end. Like, oh, all these consciousnesses or beams of light are stuck and can't flow in their beautiful figure 8 journey through time, space, and dimensionality of where they are supposed to be going. It is a way of jumping up and over those blockages that can be things like disease or blockages that can be events in time. Here's one good brief example. And there's another comment. I'll get to your comment while it's still relevant. This is from a couple of semesters ago, a person in the class here who would be driving to her job at the farmer's market. And she told me that one time, she shared this in class, so I share it publicly. Well, I think her name's Nicole. One time she was driving to the farmer's market and she saw another car was starting to veer into her lane. Like, death is imminent, something's gonna happen. And she said that she spontaneously flying rainbow lasagna. She spontaneously, internally, changed timelines. And what she experienced was she saw an overlapping of both of the cars, but there was not a crash. And then she found herself miraculously or inexplicably or supernaturally in another lane on the highway, away from the car that was in danger of hitting her. And she felt very consciously that she had jumped timelines. That's what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's about avoiding a disease or a spontaneous remission or a spontaneous change of something that's in your body state. Sometimes it is a spontaneous rewriting of the events of time. Do you get it? So that you don't hit the membrane of death or go into the periphery or go into those areas that are meant to be unexplored wrong notes. It is a spontaneous redefinition. And again, that's like downloading the map or the GPS God positioning system that tells you, like, don't go on that timeline, don't go in that direction, you're gonna die. Get over here in this direction, because what is truly written for you in the music of eternity is eternal life. And eternal life doesn't always mean looking exactly the same way you look right now. You do change, you do metamorphose, change state. Metamorphosis, caterpillar into butterfly. Nothing wrong with changing state. That is different though than death, which would be a cessation of body processes. So metamorphosis, changing of state, and continuity of consciousness, yes, as opposed to death, breaking of consciousness, and lack of continuity in your life journey. Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Rainbow Body. Thank you for sharing all that you've shared here. Thank you very much. And I know I do not wish to appear insensitive to all the beautiful, profound changes that you're experiencing in being here and in listening to this, even while I'm like, but I also want to get through my notes. Like, oh my goodness, like, I hope that that is not misperceived. Let me pause for a moment. Let me redirect and go to Lyson's comment. He says, the human light body or time body, as you explain, is precious. Yes, big yes. It's precious currency, literally, like electrons flow in a current in a wire. Used by all these invaders. You got it, man. It is basically our prana, exactly, breath of life, converted into this whole financial system. You got it. I call it the economy of hell. So yeah, time is your most precious asset. Giving them less and less of your time focused attention is a very good start to get your precious energy back into your personal, planetary, solar reality co-creation with divinity. Beautifully comprehended, beautifully articulated. You make wonderful, good points. I'm cheering. I stand up and cheer with my heart. Yes, that is exactly what is going on. So in the negative comprehension levels, we do, not negative, but just like, oh, this is not good stuff. In the recognition of piles of crapola, we recognize that our time body and being on the correct timeline and achieving that eternal energy and love tone. I'm making this tone. I'm flying along in a frictionless state. And the reason why you're eternal is because you have an eternal amount of energy. There's no such thing as entropy in that state, in that love and above state. You keep going as a beautiful, coherent light form that never ends. That is the eternal journey. And it is like going around and around and around in figure eights, in ever expanding, ever expanding, ever growing, and ever contracting reality levels. Eternal journey. And then the parasites of the system, or the ones that siphon off energy, are exactly what Lyson has explained. It's a necessary level of recognition to be at here, even though you might not necessarily want to focus it on it 100% of the time, because it's like, that's definitely crapola. Like, it's definitely crapola, and let's fix it and clean it up, and then also be able to move into these greater levels. These piles of crapola are the sense of fragmentary consciousnesses, or consciousnesses that have not successfully made it either into their death journey or their ascension journey, and exist kind of in that in-between state, and that they have been utilizing prana, or breath of life, or time, energy, momentum for the sustenance of their own consciousnesses, when their own consciousnesses should be like a song that is kaput, that is no longer being played. But they're like, but wait, I'm a immature, fragmentary consciousness, and I want to still somehow cling to existence. I'm paraphrasing in their, tortured minds and lives. They're like, dude, I want us to keep being somehow, so I'm going to get energy from you, kind of like a virus, a parasite, a flea, anything that needs something else to feed off of, that, as opposed to self state, and that this is different than food. That's why it's hard, because sometimes people conflate, like, well, wait a minute, you're eating like whatever, avocados, and you're parasiting off of that tree. Like, no, this is very, very different. It's different than being in a divine partnership with the sun and the stars and pure light, and a divine partnership with self state as God. So that's big. And what the solution in terms of flying rainbow lasagna is all about is entropy, the kaput, the song that doesn't have to be played anymore. If beings have reached a level of ineptitude, or have made mistakes in their lives, and they find themselves in a certain position, the best thing to do is not to be like, okay, like, I'm totally effed. What am I going to do? I'll steal from that guy in order to keep myself afloat. That is not the best thing to do. The best thing to do is to say, time for me to go to entropy, and then that level of consciousness can actually try to return to a more divine state, like kind of try it again from where you're supposed to be. Take it from the top, from where you're supposed to be, as opposed to trying to somehow artificially sustain itself. When I say the economy of hell, that's what I talk about. And that's level 18 stuff also. And it should be spoken about in recognition, and also I'm offering opportunities and tools to move beyond it, because it definitely affects us in our world, but it doesn't have to eternally. That's what I am here in order to say. So jumping up and over those blockades, and then sending those blockades to entropy. Entropy as meaning a stillness and a quietude, not a purgatory, burning in Christian hell, or any kind of punishment state. Really clear on all of that too. Thank you for these beautiful comments. Let me go back to my notes, and I'll try to get through this pretty fast. A genetic block is also a block in the mind, the verbal mind at the level of yellow. So a lot of these blockades come in the sense of the articulated mind, what we hear as verbalizations in our mind, what we have come here and learned to do as little tiny children. This talking mind and these voices often prevent us from achieving a particular vibration. The solution is meditation and mindfulness, the importance of inner silence, of stilling the mind, and being able to be at the level of higher perception through the Indigo Chakra up here. And that drawing that I showed to you, we'll go back to it. The Indigo Chakra, right there, that is Christ consciousness, and it is nonverbal. That being in that insight state is nonverbal. And I feel most comfortable being in that insight state. It is the trueness of my nature and the trueness of my mind. And that is why it is often difficult for me to put my thoughts into words, and have felt most comfortable in terms of speaking with abstraction, like my abstract paintings and largely abstract music. However, you know that I do flap my moving mouth parts so that I can get the information out to the gatekeeper of the intellect, because it is valuable in order to do that, so that that way you're able to have the intellectual, the intellect needs to be spoken to. Like that guy that stands there just like, you can't get past me, or I'm going to block your basketball shot. It needs to be addressed. So it's like, okay, you talk to it, and then it starts to be like, well, wait a minute. Okay, I believe that, I understand that. And that there are actually other teachers too. Like people sometimes bring up Bruce Lipton in his teachings about epigenetics. And also, hi, Trisha, thank you. It's good to see you. I mean, you're tuning in from there. I know you're tuning in from a different time zone. Yep, totally on a different time zone. You're good. Totally good. Bruce Lipton, and talking about epigenetics, and also speaking to the more scientific-based, objective materialist viewpoints, that's a part of the intellectual gatekeeper. You get it? That someone might say, like, scientifically, it is impossible for us to do blah, blah, blah. And then you have to speak to it and say, well, actually, it's possible because of this, this, and this, and here's some scientific examples of it. And then as you speak to the intellectual gatekeeper more and more, the DNA changes, the DNA behavior changes. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, wait, we can actually do that. We actually can do that. We actually do that. So do. Over the past 20 years, I make jokes sometimes, I have to. Over the past 20 years of me being here, I have watched human society leveling up in terms of what science and the objective materialist world thinks and feels is possible, the world of physics, the world of higher math, how those academic consciousness levels have grown and expanded, and those are in large sense the intellectual gatekeepers. And now a lot of scientists and computer scientists talk about quantum computers, quantum computing, super states, achieving two states at one time, the non-locality and quantum entanglement of certain phenomena. And they're starting to catch up with all the things that I emanate and embody as truth. Positive stuff going on. There's less blocking of your basketball shots by the intellectual gatekeepers of your cultural truths, all right? And that comes to consensual reality, like the idea, like we all look at the wall and agree that the wall is the wall because of consensual reality, the narrative we all agree with. So science in many ways is part of the consensual reality agreement structure of what is and is not possible in this world. If you get the academics and the objective materialist scientists on board, then you can help to redefine what is possible in terms of consciousness. Boom. Flying rainbow lasagna as a bridge, as a solution to get past the blockages on a genetic level and on a level of mental programming. The flying rainbow lasagna goes into the next highest dimension. So to paraphrase, that means that this shape here is the next highest dimensional expression of this state here. This thing here builds a bridge up and over, just like the little ant. This flying rainbow lasagna allows you to jump over blockages that prevent a direct connection to God or the source or higher dimensional intelligence and organizing principle. This as allowing you to return to that quality of existence where you are innately divinely connected all the time, even while you're in your physicality. Instead of escape from physicality, Calgon, take me away, get me out of this body and this stupid world of toilet paper. Instead of that, it is, I am redefining what it is to be in a material body. Matter plus energy equals infinity. Matter plus energy equals flying rainbow lasagna. All of a sudden, the body becomes magical. The body and the experience of being embodied becomes magical. It's what it was always meant to be. On the level of your genes, of microcellular tori that your genes are comprised of. Okay, so you have, let's draw it out. This is big. Well, this is part of the, hold on a second. Recorded lessons. I have to squint and scroll. Nope, that's not the right one. Sorry, guys. I'm talking. Don't want to ruin my flow because I've got this over here and this over here. Nope, that's not the right one. I've got that one over here. Don't worry. That's not the right one. I'll just work with what I've got. Let me go to share screen now. Microtori. So this is, again, a human artistic interpretation of your DNA structure. Oh, I lost the annotation too. Okay, never mind. I will just wiggle my cursor over here. This is a scanning electron microscope with some human painting added on top of it. So not just a total picture snapshot, some artistic interpretation, but a pretty accurate representation of a strand of your DNA and how it begins supercoiling. It's one strand like a strand of yarn, which then winds around these protein structures that are called histones. And you can start to see how they start to wind around here. At the next level of supercoiling, what you end up getting are, I'll just draw it on the whiteboard. You end up getting donut shapes. Like here's a donut shape. You know, donut hole in the center here. There we go. Wow, it's not the best drawing of a torus that I've ever made. But you get what I'm talking about, a donut shape. So that it's kind of shaped like this. So at a certain point, when your DNA is coiled up from one strand, you end up having a shape that is exactly like a donut. And it's called a torus in the level of supercoiling. If you do research of this on a scientific objective materialist level, and each one of those DNA donuts can be transformed into what would be considered a flying rainbow lasagna. I'm making the curly edge. I'm making this center point jump up like this. I'm making this center point jump down like this. And that is how we end up with this beautiful lasagna expression. The sphere is turned inside out without cutting it. Your inside becomes the outside and the outside becomes the inside. New genetic behavior is made possible and explored in that activity. So big takeaway here. When you do this dance of flying rainbow lasagna on a microcellular level in the DNA of your body, it affects your overarching time field around you. Like that figure over there has a big giant time field all around it. The tiny, tiny, tiny dance movements that you're doing and that you're dancing affect your energy field. And in reciprocity, when you change your overarching larger energy field, it also changes the dance of your DNA. All of these things connect and affect one another. And when you are changing your DNA dance and structure, it affects time and the time field and the larger time body. And when you change the larger time body, it also affects you yourself as a tiny microcellular subunit of the larger entirety. Okay. You can do the flying rainbow lasagna with a stack of donuts, a stack of your DNA. So I showed you with one cell or one supercoiling, but you actually have many stacked up donuts. And when you do that, you have a whole stack of lasagnas, all lasagna in, and they do it in various different patterns. This is why you can make an almost infinite number of combinations or books or rewrite truth in this way, even if you only have 4 notes in a chord or 4 codons, 4 proteins in your codons of your DNA, you can intercombine them in an almost infinite number of combinations, so that if you have stacked up DNA and you start to move them, it's like having stacked layers of the tapestry of time, and you begin to take an event from over here and an event from over here and an event from over here, and we're going to activate all of those things. I'm going to cherry pick or choose the best events from all of these possible realities and energize or activate those best events And the other stuff that we don't want, that might involve negative experiences and genetic diseases, super coil that stuff up, close it up. That is not stuff that you want to energize. And what that is experienced in terms of your first person experience, driver of the car viewpoint, you don't think those thoughts, you don't have those emotional realities, you don't experience those manifestations in your reality. And we're talking about everything from crashing your car on the way to the farmer's market, to developing diseases like tumors and cancer, to having any other negative, unwanted experience or feeling or thought in your life. And in speaking in the positive sense, experiencing total vitality, total divine connection. Like when you're connected to God and you are embodying divinity in that way, it's a hugely uplifting way of moving and experiencing. You have a great quality of life. And it is not about the suffering that comes from ignorance. And it is very much about like the reconnection in Christ, in being part of that crystalline structure, reconnection to telepathic civilization, telepathy, thinking and feeling alongside of all these other things, not being in a sense of isolation or disconnection, which has been part of the sinking of the Titanic. We did not sign up for that, but we experienced it. And we need a huge amount of personal, planetary, and cultural healing. It caused a lot of pain to experience this. Please rise up out of that pain into the levels of reconnection and joy and triumph, having survived and having been through all of this and having been through the soul refinery of these very incredibly difficult experiences. Changing your DNA has an impact on your overall electromagnetic field. That's that time field around you, like Earth's magnetic field, the magnetosphere. Changing your DNA changes your electromagnetic field. Changing your DNA dance into flying rainbow lasagna changes Earth's magnetic field. Do I have my image up? Hold on a second, go to share screen. Yeah, I don't have any of my paintings prepared for today. Yes, I do. It's right there. Okay, share screen. Changing your personal magnetic field into flying rainbow lasagna means that you change and affect Earth's magnetic field, known as the magnetosphere, and the experience of all expression of life on Earth. This is what this painting is all about. Earth's formerly toroid, donut-shaped energy field transforming into the flying rainbow lasagna waveform, and that is an anthropomorphic figure here who is embodying the flying rainbow lasagna, and it affects the entire planetary structure. Good, big stuff. So all of this is about beginning, I said this already, doing the yoga of perception, thinking about viewpoints of experienced reality in a more multidimensional way. That is getting past the intellectual gatekeeper. As you start to think about as you move throughout your day, imagine that you have one of these magical time crystals where you're able to be like, well, you know, if I woke up 1 minute later, if I didn't press snooze, I would be on a totally different timeline. Or if I drank tea instead of coffee, or if I decided to go out to the coffee shop, or if I had eggs instead of cereal, or any of these seemingly tiny choices really have an impact on what timeline we are experiencing throughout our day, and beginning to cultivate that multidimensional perception. The understanding that you're experiencing a time vortex, your chakras are made of timelines, and you are shifting your awareness from timeline to timeline. So the flying rainbow lasagna on the way to the farmer's market is a way of shifting from one timeline to another timeline. Guys, even just listening to this lecture with me for 2 hours, you've shifted timelines. You're not on the same timeline that you were before. You've ingested many new ideas from the energy and ideas and consciousness, and new light has come into your terrarium. And you are now able to achieve new timelines and new combinations and go in directions that you weren't able to go before because of this influx of new ideas and energy. And it's in consent. You chose to be here. You chose to listen. I love you. Thank you for exposing yourself to these ideas. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for connecting with me and my energy field. All of this foundation of cosmic truth, foundation of free will. We'll get to this on free will because I don't want to gloss over that. Blockages were artificially inserted into human development as a limiting factor, and they present as thought forms. Got it? Thoughts that are in the human operating system, the yellow level that limit you. Your DNA as an expression of thoughts. So cancer is a connection to DNA. Cancer is a disease of DNA. Cancer is a disease of timelines. Cancer is a connection to thoughts. There's so much stuff in our world that is about thinking about cancer and pink ribbons on something. And many, many people that you might know that might have cancer. And oh my goodness, a lot of thought structure and attention going into cancer. DNA as an expression of thoughts. Let's put tons of thought energy into wellness, health, eternal life, vitality, transcendence of any of these genetic difficulties. Your thoughts affect your DNA, and your DNA can be the limiting factor to what you can think. That's big. And all of this stuff is about epigenetics and about some of these healers and teachers that are teaching people how to change and modify and bring themselves out of chronic or acute disease states. DNA limitations on certain concepts that could set your mind free. That's big. That there have been implanted thought and DNA limitations on certain concepts that could set your mind free. You could make a basketball slam dunk. My mind is free, except you got this big, giant guy, it's your human intellect, that's blocking you, saying, no, you're not going to make that basket. And that basically the thought that is the slam dunk thought is, I am able to bend and fold the fabric of space, time, and reality. All my mind is non-local. All light is here now. I'm quantumly connected to the everythingness. That's big. There have been innate genetic blockages, genetic modifications, and thought and intellect blockages and limitations, preventing humans from just think your way out of it. Like, it's been challenging, believe me. These have been artificially created in the operating system known as human society, human culture, and verbalized language. So a lot of this is the heroic effort that you are making to jump beyond the limitations of verbalization, beyond the limitations of your cultural imprinting and everything else that has prevented you from simply recognizing that the singularity that is within you, slam dunk, is the same singularity that is in the sun and the galactic center and in every particle of light everywhere and every aspect of the time animal everywhere. So I'm the first person who was ever able to create flying rainbow lasagna and go across this bridge. And I was able to embody some of this new energy and new vibrations. We're able to get to Earth as a result. And those things that had been blocked out and weren't able to get here for thousands of years are now able to get here. And it's also like saying you had a cosmic inbox where you had a lot of like 6,000, 25 million messages in your cosmic inbox because you had been cut off from your God positioning system for a long amount of time. And now that Flying Rainbow Lasagna is working, all of this light and all this information is coming in here. And of course, I recorded this in 2013 or 2014, and I've been here for 20 years. Basically, as I've been here for 20 years, been slowly working away at that cosmic inbox, like all of that divine information is flowing into this world now. And it's getting faster and faster, getting a faster and faster internet connection to God positioning system. The cosmic inbox was full of a backlog of messages from the sun and the stars and the galaxy. It's been waiting to get to humanity for tens of thousands of years. And you're finally getting all of this stuff in a relevant time frame that helps you to actually be able to transcend these difficulties and piles of crapola that humanity has been facing for a long amount of time. It was not until the creation of this bridge of consciousness, making a connection and becoming a conduit between these two realms, that now finally new ideas can enter this system, new energy can enter the terrarium. That's the new vibration. That's what I'm talking about. So also I give a huge amount of credit to it. I'm a conduit. I'm making the inbox happen, and also on a much, much larger scale, like way, way, way back, scale back. I'm the conductor of the Philharmonic, but that's like on a much, much, much larger level. So like I give a huge amount of recognition and praise to that great conductor who is writing these messages in your inbox. Like, where is that coming from? That is coming from a much, much larger self state than even me as Aurora the collective, than even me as Aurora this embodied individual. Big stuff. And the big stuff, I would say that would be analogous to if I went back in time. Like, I would have to scroll way, way, way back in time to be like, yeah, that's me all the way back there. It is also you. Words fail, but I'm trying to make this clear, like, so that I'm not misinterpreted through ego filters, and that I give plenty of credit to the divine presence. I'm also the divine presence, but you guys are also the divine presence. But there's a distinction made in terms of the level of development and personal embodiment that I'm at, even at the level of Flying Rainbow Lasagna, who I am now, the Aurora Collective, and who I am as an embodied individual. There's a really intelligent, amazing genius that wrote all of those messages to your inbox, and I am helping you to get connected to it. That is what I'm trying to say. I hope that that came through in clarity. Thank you. This is part of the change and shift in events that have happened since 2001. It's for the past 20 years, humans have been leveling up, and what you can conceive of and what you can embody has been changing and expanding in the way that you want to structure your social structure, economy, money system, economy, money system, energetic economy, ways of interacting with each other, ways of using your mind, all of that stuff, huge leveling up, and also leveling up in the sense of what is possible according to the intellectual gatekeepers and science and technology. All of that is being done since the invention of the flying rainbow lasagna. New genetic codes, new ideas are available to you, basically new amount and levels of connectivity to that great presence, to that great conductor. So I think I say that in almost all of my presentations. Like, yes, there is a great conductor. If I scale back enough, if all of us scale back enough, you become and you recognize, like, I'm that conductor in this moment, in this level of embodiment. I give full recognition to that great conductor as, like, if I'm an artist in the art studio, someone invented art studios. Someone invented time. You get it? I'm embedded in time. I'm a time artist. I'm using time and time colors to make things happen. And someone invented time. Someone invented the concept of colors and the concept of painting and all of this. Like, an amazing thing must be, recognition must flow to where it is deserved. So humanity has had a raising of its collective vibration over the past 20 years. Being able to get around the genetic blockages, connect to the source for new ideas, new energy, new consciousness, basically new nutrition for your non-physical self, new light for your light body, coherent light body growing and changing, being rectified and going in the right direction due to new ideas, new ways of putting together society and organizing your perception that are life-saving or life-extending. All of these teachings about you don't actually have to die, you can flying rainbow lasagna, moving away from the death cult mentality, moving away from the death cult's power hold on this world that it has had for a very long amount of time. Upgrades on a genetic, cellular, and consciousness level, which allow humans to embody ideas on an ever higher level. The idea that you have a beautiful physical body, your corporeal form as a conduit in the third dimension, through which we can be active in the denser realms, celebrating having a physical body, not being like, harumph, I have a physical body, hooray, I have a physical body. It's through which all these vectors and forces and intangibles can be expressed, and also you redefine what it is to have a physicality. It's a huge empowerment structure to be here, not just to be an ephemeral thought form that is floating around as pure energy. You're not just energy, you also matter. I joke, you matter, you energy, you everything. We have a body, we can anchor those thoughts into the physical reality by being a neurology that contains the consciousness that contains those thoughts. Got it? Thoughts are non-physical energy impulses. You have a physical body with physical energy structures in there, your nerves. And when you put non-physical thought forms into your physical energy structures and pathways, literally bring those thoughts into being. And then you also speak them and behave them and exemplify them and use your quantum observership to make things happen, manifest them. Beautiful. You're doing your job. Beautiful. Once the flying rainbow lasagna was created, a genetic bridge so that now this energy can come across to me, but also to others. So that's big. I acted in a way that helps me as an individual, and I also acted in a way that helps others and can be gifted to you. And that's really the ethics of all of this. It is totally appropriate to do things that help and serve yourself. And it is also totally appropriate to then make available to others those things. I didn't just say, like, I'm gonna lasagna, keep it for my own private thing, my own private stash of lasagna, will not share it with anyone. I'm pretending that I'm like from that movie, like The Precious, holding the precious, I'm like a twisted, distorted thing. No, what I did was I said, wow, this is an amazing thing. And I made it and I did it for myself. And I changed this body and this self state and made miracles happen for me. And then I also gifted to you. I want it to happen for you also. It is gifted, offered, but not imposed. And then it must be something that is internalized, where you do your own math homework and figure it out on your own, because that way it ends up being an internalized or embodied lesson that comes with you when you go on your cosmic journey, as opposed to something that, you know, fritters away or falls away because it wasn't an eternal structure inside of you. When you internalize something, you really bring it with you. You really have learned it. So I offer it to you as a gift, and you take it and run with it and make it your own. And this is also the way that the cosmos works. Once a new thought is created anywhere throughout the cosmos, because thoughts are non-local, everything is connected, the recognition of non-locality means it's one way of getting past the blockages. That's what I just said. Get past that guy that wants you to stop the slam dunk. You're like, but wait a minute, intellectual thought structure. All thoughts are interconnected, and all time is now, and all of these singularities overlap and interpenetrate, and all light is now. Therefore, my thoughts are all interconnected with everything else. As opposed to the scientific objective materialist viewpoint, that thoughts are merely a phenomenon that arise as a secondary example of your own neurology. Like first you make a brain, and then your brain makes a bunch of thoughts, and they stay in your own head, and it's like kind of like the scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz. Like, I think with my brain full of straw, like that's who I am and that's what I do. No, it's a really different way of looking at the world than that. Your thoughts are non-local, and they exist elsewhere as well as inside of your head. And you're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool. You are connected to a giant ocean of consciousness. Let's hug over here. Chica came out. Maybe she heard me talking about the Wizard of Oz. All minds are connected. And in the world where all minds are connected, all time is now. And this is called non-locality. Everything is connected in real time. And that's the truth of galactic citizenship and galactic presence. All of these galaxies or nodes of consciousness that are all thinking in concert with one another, not taking billions of years to send signals in a linear sense between one another, all interconnected between one another. So also big remembrance here. So, okay, the flying rainbow lasagna has allowed beings everywhere to transform the toroidal energy structures into ephemeral structures. So that's big. What I've done in this life and in this body and on this planet plane of existence affects the people, beings, organisms here and elsewhere. When you think a thought, basically, when you think or create anything, a new song, a new thought, a new anything, it's available everywhere. It is something that everyone, everywhen can have access to. And that is part of the amazingness of interconnectivity of thought. So ownership becomes less of an issue, but recognition becomes really the word that we would use. So this is now a revolutionary concept that is being applied all over throughout our whole galaxy or our whole system or the whole multiple system of multiple galaxies. The whole symphony of life now has access to this higher dimensional level of being and perception. What is happening on Earth? This all of a sudden new higher dimensional broadcasts are able to get through. It's changing humanity on a mass level. And what is happening inside of this petri dish known as Earth and the things that were limited here is now escaping this petri dish and vibrating outward into all these other parallel existences, levels of existence, levels of reality, the concurrent worlds that you're experiencing in ancient Atlantis, and the things that would be considered the far distant future. Humanity is analogous to the neurology of the planet. Like if Earth has oceans that are its blood and trees that are its lungs, humans would be like the mind, thinking brain of the planet. And that if you have a flawed operating system implanted into the human mind, then it's like saying you have a mental disease implanted into the planet. And then if you do the healing on a structural level on human consciousness and get up and over those blockages and change and transform what humans are thinking, you similarly have a healing of the mental or cognitive diseases and developmental diseases of the entire planet. So humans implanted with the flawed operating system, we're sending out signals of disharmony by thinking thoughts and signals that are not harmonious and connected to the source. And this has been affecting our entire planet. This is part of what's been going on here, making it out of tune for tens of thousands of years. Now it is possible for the planetary structure to be coming into tune. Blockages are being removed, genes are being changed and put together in the way that they were meant to be put together, changes in your inner energy structure, change in the thoughts of the conscious waking mind, your conscious dream affecting the dream of the planet, a change in the shape of your DNA and the dance movements that it performs. Wait, I'll do that with my hands. A change in your DNA and the dance movements that it performs, and a change in your timelines and their shape, and DNA as a portal through which the multiplicity of timelines are being expressed in terms of possibilities and probabilities. Then we'll get into this, the percentages that some people are experiencing this at various different levels. Some people might experience 100% connectivity, like kapow, I'm 100% connected to the divine. I get all the fresh maps for downloading into my cell phone now. And some people might still be like 5%. So it's happening at multiple, that phenomenon is being expressed through multiple different levels of individuality. And some people have transcended their limitations and programmed into them by their ancestors and their parents and human culture, limitations such as about what your body can do, where you can get your resources from, and how you experience reality. So this is the fragmentation of reality, different density or specific gravity experiments. Some people are at this level where they're still in an objective materialist reality. They've downloaded 5% of the new maps, and they still think like there's a certain, like there's only so many potatoes out there, and you have to fight over them and fight over cans of beans, and I'm gonna get like, you know, a crossbow and protect myself from roving bands of bandits that are gonna try to get my cans of beans. Limited thinking, right? But love them because that's where they're coming from. Some people have downloaded 100% of the new maps, and they recognize my mind and my perception is creating not only potatoes and cans of beans, I'm also creating my body, time itself, reality structure itself. Like you're moving into these levels of greatness and freedom, and also radical self-responsibility, empathy, radical consciousness of unity consciousness, self-responsibility and responsibility towards others. Huge growth is happening. So when you start to recognize, like, wait a minute, my mind is non-local, the creation of resources is infinite, I have access to an infinite amount of energy and an infinite amount of resources, but you're not just thinking, well, okay, like how can I use this to make a buck? Like how can I use this? Like I'm gonna make like a thing. I'll make a thing and I'll make 1 million things and I'll sell them for $1 million, and then I'll sell them for $1 a thing and I'll make $1 million. Like it's not like that, because you start to recognize like my mind is making things, but my motivations become more than just the idea of making 1 million things and then selling it for $1 a thing and then having $1 million. Becomes much, much different. Your personal motivations become also serving yourself, but serving the whole. That's the story of my life and my existence here as Aurora, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Did something that was incredibly important to me in my own personal journey. And I also did something that is a sharing and a gift that is in responsibility to the whole, and also like a duty to the whole, that I've been here for 20 years, bringing in the messages from the cosmic inbox. Like, I gotta do my dance, I gotta do my dance, I gotta do my dance every day, I gotta keep dancing, so that all the people and beings and events that are here that I care about profoundly are getting their cosmic messages. And then at a certain point, and it's been very gratifying to see this through my classes and artwork and interdimensional connection, there's lots and lots of baby lasagnas that are doing their dances too. So I love you and I hug you. I'm like, thank you. Thank you for doing the dance. Thank you for bringing in the messages from the cosmic inbox. That is the whole point of having a system that is stronger than a pyramid-shaped hierarchy. If there's only one songwriter at the top and whatever, you get a sore throat and you're not feeling so good and you don't write a new song on that day, then you're kaput. You don't have any new songs. But what if everybody in the band is a songwriter? What if everybody has this capacity, like I'm encouraging everyone? Take the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and embody it in your own unique self state and write these new songs of reality and be able to change and transform and connect to the divine world that is your true heritage. Then you have an amazing, strong system that basically you can't knock it out, because there's so many nodes and individual portals for divine greatness to come through, that it's not just about one person or one songwriter or one entry point. There become the strength of the system is multiple entry points, and it becomes a powerful lasagna system that cannot be stopped because it is non-local. And then you start to understand, well, that's just like the singularity. That's just like light. That's just like, yes, all of these things that are incredibly strong systems that are non-local, that have multiple entry points, that this is patterned upon something that is great. You got it. So I give glory and recognition to all of these patterns and pattern makers that predate the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And that's also like saying all of this beautiful structured cosmic law that I'm a protector of and an upholder of does not come into conflict with what I do as Flying Rainbow Lasagna. This is like the next level of what you can do with those basic truths and with cosmic law. So with everything that you're sending out is bouncing off of other beings and then bouncing back to you, and you take responsibility for your emanations. It is beginning to see the world as far from arbitrary chaos or controlled by a capricious deity. Read here as the beautiful comment earlier, death cult stuff. No, not just a weird, stupid world controlled by a capricious deity, but instead seeing it as a causality structure. And this is quantum. Again, quantum means this thing makes this thing happen in time. Dominoes fall over time. Causality structure. And it is non-local and non-linear. So this is all about recognizing that what you send out comes back to you. Basic cosmic law, so that you can learn basic cosmic law and tell empathy and unity consciousness and recognition and reciprocity. What you're sending out interacts with other energy patterns and then returns to you so that you can learn what it is you're interacting with. Because, spoiler alert, you are the sun. Spoiler alert, you are God. Then, spoiler alert, you are the sun. And spoiler alert, you are sending out all of these photons as feelers, as self-states, to be these individuated people, everyone from Martine to Julia to Charlie, and everyone else, I'm just naming people who are at the top of my screen, to experience what it is, bounce off of each other, and then recognize that you are feeling each other from various different viewpoints in reality and bouncing off of each other like ping pong balls, and then bouncing back like sonar feelings to be able to, your sensor sensing all these things that are in reality. In interacting with other beings that are outside of yourself, you learn about yourself. That is what you are. You are the sun, you are God, you are externalizing your internal state, you are fragmenting yourself or refracting yourself, and then bouncing off of your own refracted, fractal selves and learning about yourself. This has everything to do with you impacting other people's genes and other people having an impact on you. Remember back to 2 hours ago on this quantum journey when I told you that as a little tiny baby, somebody held you in their arms and their genes imprinted upon you. They had an impact upon you. And also everything that you are internalizing and changing radiates outward and has impact on others. So thank you for being here and ingesting new ideas and new energy and life getting into your terrarium. You begin to sing a new song and send out new vibrations that affect other people all around you. You become a node of greater divine self-expression. This is big. Okay. When you're a child, you get implanted with this human operating system at the level of yellow. It involves language, ways of being, expectations of reality, social structure, and also it happens just simply by marinating in this time and place. Even if no one sits you down and says, hey, little girl, little boy, this is the way things go. You exist in this time and place, and you kind of learn by immersion how things are in the way of the world, right? In adulthood, as we reclaim our willpower at the level of yellow and orange, back to our journey from two hours ago, there we go. You begin to make conscious choices. And in adulthood, you reclaim your willpower, not just having things done to you, but beginning to make active choices about how you use your thoughts and how you use your emotional reality to consciously shape reality. You say, I choose to do this. I choose to believe this. I choose to claim responsibility for such and such thing. This is maturity. This is adulthood, moving out of the childhood state and moving into adulthood. The interplay of yellow and orange chakras, I did that at the beginning of this lesson, and this is big. I emphasize this in my notes. We are meant to be free and to experience free will, not to have things imposed upon us as slaves. That's very, very big. It has everything to do with the sun, the stars, light, photons as feelers, and God here exploring and experiencing God's self. You get to have free will that is part of the experience and learning process of experiencing things in yourself, as opposed to having a flawed operating system that is implanted upon you in childhood that then makes it so that it is very challenging for you to think your own thoughts, believe your own thoughts, and go where you want to go in time. Your journey as an adult And your journey as a cosmic citizen is to reclaim your willpower, live in radical self-accountability and responsibility, and say, I make these choices to think these things. I create my reality. I create my body. I create my self-state. I am creating and interacting and interpenetrating with other people. And this has to do with genetic changes. Genetic changes were imposed upon humanity tens of thousands of years ago. The concurrent level of antediluvian realm, that really was and is a form of mental enslavement. That's the unfun part of the recognition of this journey. Yes, you didn't just fall, you were pushed, you were brought into slavery. You guys have been experiencing this, and I've been experiencing it concurrently along with you here in my experience as Aurora. It has been limiting human perception to such a degree that people could no longer be making informed choices. If I take away your crystalline viewpoint, your Christ consciousness viewpoint, you can't see where the F you're going. You have no GPS connection. How in the world can you make conscious, informed choices without that critical infrastructure, without that critical connection? These genetic modifications did everything to take humans away from their own Christhood or from their own Christ consciousness connection, from their own connection to divinity. This is what the enslavement has been. And taking responsibility and becoming a galactic citizen, these are all outgrowths of free will and clear perception and informed consent. The regaining of this higher faculty, the regaining of these capacities, regaining the ability to see time as an abstract, navigate reality, make choices that are informed choices, not just go through every wrong note on the piano before you get to finally the right note in reality, and that is part of being an informed citizen, being a galactic citizen, being part of this telepathic, empathic society. Now that we can create a genetic consciousness bridge with the flying rainbow lasagna and get around the time blockade. Get it? Got stuck in a time bubble, been facing a time blockade, can't make the slam dunk, can't make the slam dunk, blockading you in time. We begin to reactivate on a mass level, a level of consciousness within each one of us, which is Christ consciousness. It means clear insight, clear direct perception, connected to God, source, and the galactic unity perspective. That is what is going on here right now. That the flying rainbow lasagna is the tool for getting over the genetic blockades and the time blockades that have enslaved humanity for an incredibly long amount of time. That took you away from your natural definition of self-state as connected to God and being active in Christ consciousness. And this allows you to reconnect to God, the divine presence, to be guided by God again, to be connected to Christ consciousness, to be an embodiment of what Christ is, to that is connected to galactic culture, galactic at the level of the philharmonic, at the level of the larger symphony of life, and to be able to have clear seeing, clear insight, beyond words and the distortion of language. You just know. When you have clear insight, you just know. And you don't even have to put it into words, and words become laborious flapping of moving mouth part packages, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I have to put this into words. You know, and is beyond the level of an operating system that even could be hacked. This is why it was necessary to cut humanity off from Christ consciousness in order to hack and implant a hackable system, because otherwise, if you had this, you'd be like, oh, like that doesn't resonate on the level of pure insight. Like, nope, that doesn't resonate, no. You take away the Christ connection, then it's like, oh, now I will eat your lies, and now I will understand and believe these things that aren't truthful. Like I'm being fake and facetious, and I'm even making like a face of like someone that is not intelligent, not connected, no condescension meant, but that is what they did to enslave humanity. It's not a fun story. And the rectification event and what is happening on our planet right now is a return of Christ consciousness, a reawakening of the inner eye. Let me read this for you. Waking up, this is emphasized in my notes, waking up everybody's third eye on a worldwide planetary scale equals the return of Christ consciousness to Earth. That is what this is all about. A reawakening of this innate or dormant potential that is your birthright, who and what you are on a major level that has been artificially disconnected from you, that is now returning to you through your efforts, through your divine reconnection, through using the tool that you can use to jump over these blockages, changing the Rubik's Cube, returning to who and what you are of Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And that the more people who have embodied energy on that level of higher consciousness, the more that has an impact on all the DNA that exists in this world, on this planet, and reverberates everywhere. Because you're playing your guitar and that song is going through the song of time. The more people that embody the Christ consciousness here in this time and place, the more that that music emanates and spreads outward across the tapestry of multiple layers of time, parallel dimensions, concurrent lives, and into other petri dishes, other terrariums, other closed systems that were similarly assaulted or benighted, brought into darkness, disconnected from this true light of consciousness. DNA as a vibrating antenna that not only receives but also sends information, because your DNA receives and sends information, so you're sending it out from your petri dish into other petri dishes, your layer of reality into many multiple other layers of reality. This is also emphasized in my notes here. What you do matters in your life, and what you think matters, and what you send out and emanate and send out to others in terms of your thoughts and your consciousness frequencies really has a profound impact on the entire planet and the structure of the neurology of all thought beings who are on the planet or in this realm, however you like to hear it, and who are using this world in order to learn. Get it? You stretch your concept of selfhood to include that you are a neurological aspect of the larger planetary creature known as Gaia. That there's a lot of different organisms and creatures and fractal fragments of self that are here learning, and that what you are doing in terms of your own personal growth and what you send out with your thoughts and thought structure absolutely affects all of these other ping pong balls that are bouncing off of each other and learning. The larger structure of how this DNA is meant to be a connector between the sun and humanity. And when all is going well, we are perfectly connected with the sun. That's the end result upshoot of all of this. Having been disrupted or disconnected from the sun, flying around blind, again, doing the best you can. That is the huge compassion. Please focus, blazing heart compassion on yourself and on others. If you have made mistakes in your own life, or if others have made mistakes all over you, flying blind, not knowing what the F you are doing, please comprehend that you are loved by God. You are loved by this larger intelligence that is known as Christ consciousness, that is yourself. You are loved in your ignorance and darkness. And that then when you reconnect and you're like, oh, that this, wait, now, first of all, I see what I'm supposed to be doing. Now I see all these mistakes that I've made. Now I see all of the course corrections that I need to make. I see all of the red X's on my math homework where I need to do my long division and do it differently and fix all this stuff. Please practice blazing self-compassion and compassion on others. Yes, this has all been done out of ignorance, darkness, the disconnection from this, and in the reconnection there is great joy and great triumph and great amazing sense of the return of energy. It's joyful, not self-recriminating, super amazing and good. You survived, you made it through all these things. And then the rectification, the cleaning up of the piles of crap, the taking responsibility for the things that you have done, and the fixing and healing for the overarching fabric. And that really what you recognize is that when you serve and you clean up the crapola, you are serving the larger time animal, which, spoiler alert, is you. You are time. Like right now, you're existing from the viewpoint of one little like a red blood cell that's going through the bloodstream of a much larger organism. And you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but all I know is like, I have to go through an artery and get to the heart lungs. And I just have to pick up oxygen. And I have to get pumped around and I have to go here and I have to go here. Like you're like running around and doing all this stuff. And you do not necessarily have the perspective of even what the larger time animal is, where it is, what it is doing. And this is an amazing recognition. Eventually you scale up in your levels of perspective and responsibility, and you're able to see, I'm the time animal, I'm the red blood cell, I'm the individuated human, I'm all of these other humans, I'm all of these microbes, I'm all of these planetary structures, I'm all of these stars. And that is an amazing level of perception. That is just, I asked you to just do like a big yoga back bend. It's like, wow, that was a lot of yoga of perception for your intellectual gatekeeper to do. So good job, good workout, everyone. That, like, my spine just went up straighter. Good job. We just did a very good yoga stretch of the perspective and imagination. And know that all of this work that I'm using my like narrative structure that I'm guiding you through with the intellect and with the flapping of my moving mouth parts brings you to the actual activity of doing the flying rainbow lasagna. This is not just a lot of hot air or a lot of nonsense talking. Understanding or comprehending and embodying these on an intellectual level is one of the necessary precursors to doing it on a genetic level. And you start to be like, it is possible. I do the dance, I do it, and then you start to see the evidences of it in your life. Let me get to the questions and comments. Angela says, I just had a huge wave of gratitude wash over me. I'm so happy to hear that because I'm connected to these ideas. Thank you, Aurora. Thank you, organizing principal. And thank you, me. What a great blessing. I love to hear that. Thank you so much. It is so positive and so uplifting. I'm just receiving these beautiful messages in so much gratitude. And I'm happy to be connected to you. And it is everything about my intentions in being here and in sharing this with you. And thank you for reflecting and sending it back and being fractal fragment positive positive beings on the journey here. Truly. And another beautiful comment here. Let me read this out because I love it so much. I love all of you so much. Lyson says, I am so grateful to you, Aurora, for your love and support for this planet are needed and also deeply appreciated. You are fantastic. Your way of teaching and interacting with us are gold. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, I'm crying here, guys. Thank you so much on behalf of all humanity. Big hug back to you. And says thank you again for this wonderful and nutritious lasagna. I wish you and everyone a great FRL week. I am so thank you. I receive in so much gratitude, all of that beautiful energy flowing back to me. Thank you for the recognition. And thank you for all of your own particular self-work and reconnection. Thank you for being open to these ideas, doing the hard yoga back bends and moving in so many positive directions in your own particular unique existence. Because what I send out to you, you are aspects of me, you're on your journey, just in very beautiful ways. Thank you so much, everyone. I love and appreciate you too. You make me feel amazing in doing this work. So thank you so much. I can't think of, thank you. I'm getting all of your love and hugs. Thank you. Can't think of a better moment to end the recording than on that wonderful glow. Keep glowing. Please keep going on the journey. I send you endless love and encouragement. Thank you so much, everyone.